The young girl with blazing golden eyes opened them wide in astonishment as she saw the boy beginning to wake beneath her. She leaned forward, propping her hands on the bed, staring at him, and said, "Looks like you're awake now." The boy suddenly sat up with an extremely embarrassed face, shouting loudly, "Where am I? What is this situation?" Earlier, the girl was sitting on top of him, holding a moxa stick and performing a heat therapy ritual. The boy slowly opened his eyes, mumbling vaguely, as he began to sense his body was in an unusual state. He screamed in panic, clutching his head and yelling as he realized the strange situation he had just woken up to. Without thinking, he jumped up and backed away from the bed in fright, causing the girl sitting on the bed to startle as well. The girl leisurely took a drag from her cigarette, maintaining a calm demeanor as if everything was under control. She smiled softly, thinking to herself, the medicine wore off so quickly, but well, being this alert is even more attractive. The boy stood still for a moment, his eyes gradually turning serious before exclaiming inwardly, "Could it be? I've been reborn." In a radiant glow, the boy swung his sword with a shocking force, golden light exploding and tearing through the space. Recalling, he realized he had accidentally stepped into the immortal realm at Than Than Mountain 300 years ago, and began his cultivation journey. At that time, amidst the sky and earth cracked by thunder, he stepped onto the Bagua Formation and started his ascension journey. Days of arduous training transformed the boy into a sword cultivator, with sharp eyes and hair flowing in the thunderstorm. Throughout those 300 years, he continuously learned and trained day and night to become a true sword cultivator, steadfast between heaven and earth. Looking at the mysterious girl sitting on the bed, he thought silently, "Who is she? What exactly does she want from me?" The memories of cultivation surged, the streams of sword intent light still deeply imprinted in his mind. The image of himself sitting cross-legged amid a raging storm, absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to break through realms, appeared clearly. Just as he was about to reach the eternal realm, the surrounding space began to shatter, pulling him into another dimension. Unexpectedly, instead of breaking through, he opened a time-space portal and returned to Earth, back to the age of 17. The girl smiled seductively, waving her hand to pat the bed invitingly. "Come here, don't be shy anymore." He hesitated, quickly putting on his shirt and forcing a smile. "Maybe. We have a bit of a misunderstanding. I must take my leave." She stood up abruptly, her cold gaze following him, repeating his words. "Leave." Stepping closer, she arrogantly said, "Do you know who dares to refuse me deep than high? Being noticed by me is your blessing." Without a word, he turned and walked out coldly, leaving her standing alone in the room, full of surprise and anger. Without looking back, the boy stepped out of the room with a cold and determined gaze, seemingly deciding to close that chapter. On the dark path, he encountered a shadowy figure whose eyes held memories and warnings from the past. The silhouette revealed a familiar character from old times, someone he thought he had forgotten, opening a scene interwoven between memory and present. The unexpected meeting stirred in him nostalgia and determination, recalling years of cultivation and past memories. In the mystical space of the late night, the road ahead appeared as if opening a new chapter, full of hidden meanings and unprecedented challenges. Athai saw the familiar school uniform hanging on the rack and immediately remembered his important mission. He had to leave immediately. Deep Then High had just turned around when she suddenly noticed a strange light appearing behind her, leaving her astonished. Athai exerted all his magical power, but realized his current body had very little energy left. He was at a disadvantage. Using all his remaining strength, Athai pushed Deep Then High away with a strong shove wrapped in brilliant blue light. Seizing the opportunity, Athai immediately rolled away from the counterattack, opening 2 magic circles to teleport instantly out of the room. Athai clenched the school uniform tightly, his eyes determined. He had to leave this place immediately. The door burst open, Deep Then High stepped in, her overwhelming aura filling the room. Without hesitation, Athai dashed outside, clutching his clothes as if holding on to hope for escape. Meanwhile, Deep Then High calmly lit a cigarette, her movements leisurely and confident. She slightly curled her lips, thinking to herself, "Interesting. Can he really escape my pressure?" Yi Chengxi gritted her teeth, her eyes blazing with fire, vowing not to let Chu Qing slip away. To her, he was the big white rabbit she could never let go. On a crowded street, a bare foot stepped onto the tiled ground. An extraordinary presence had just descended into the modern world. Chu Qing looked up at the cityscape around him, his eyes confused as he realized he was standing amid the bustling human world, still wearing a bathrobe. The crowd jostled between tall buildings and brightly lit signs. The return of a stranger did not cause this place to pause. But at that moment the door slammed open, and the girl entered, her cold gaze locking onto him. Behind him, the girl still calmly lit a cigarette, as if enjoying a thrilling hunt. As he was being pushed aside, Chu Than suddenly turned and saw a burly female worker placing her hand on his shoulder. Chu Qing smiled softly. After 300 years, he had finally returned to Earth. Emotion welled up inside him as he thought of his parents and older brother, those he was about to see again. Chu Than gripped the uniform tightly in his hand, preparing to escape before the girl noticed. Without hesitation, Chu Than shot off like an arrow, carrying only his clothes and determination to get away. She curled her lips into a smile, thinking, "Interesting, daring to escape my aura," the excitement in her eyes growing more evident. He watched in astonishment as she carried a heavy sack of cement straight toward a construction site filled with hardworking female laborers. The scene left Chu Than speechless. The world had changed too much compared to his memories from 300 years ago. He began to realize that from police officers to workers, all were strong women, a completely reversed society that shocked him to the point of blushing. The 21st century marks a strong development of society. Although the idea of female supremacy over men has gradually changed, the tendency to elevate women above men still clearly exists. At the Tianjin Library on a clear sunny day, a young man quietly entered, carrying curiosity about forgotten history. Among thousands of books, he found a thick history volume. When he opened it, a strange light emanated from the pages, pulling him into a buried world. In the distant past, a major event between spring and autumn changed female physiology, making them exceptionally intelligent and strong. From then on, Kang Mo, an outstanding woman, was born. She initiated extreme feminist ideas, leading to the transfer of imperial power from prince to princess, completely changing the social order. In today's society, when infidelity occurs, men are often seen as traitors and heavily criticized. Meanwhile, women actively pursuing men has become completely normal. Chu Than was stunned when he read that. He felt everything was crazy. Women truly held the upper hand, and women pursuing men had become the new norm. A feeling of unease crept into Chu Than's heart. He wondered if his family had changed like the current society. Arriving home, Chu Than was surprised to see his father wearing an apron, carefully sweeping the floor like a diligent housekeeper. But instead of feeling confused, Chu Than smiled brightly. A strange joy rose in his heart seeing his father safe and the family still intact. A TH letter 1E7Y suddenly rushed over and hugged the man holding the broom tightly, shouting emotionally, "Dad!" The man, named Lin Yuantu, asked his son in surprise, "Didn't you say you would go to a friend's house after school and come home late?" As a TH letter 1E7Y nestled against his father, Lin Yuntu slightly bowed his head, his eyes serious, and gently sniffed. Lin Yuntu's face turned to astonishment when he detected a strange perfume sent from his son. He then pressed, "Have you just been with a girl? How many times have I told you, handsome like you must be careful outside, even when with friends you can't be careless?" Lin Yuntu angrily raised a newspaper, pointing to news about a 15-year-old boy whose future was ruined due to a serious misunderstanding. The teenager was stunned upon hearing the news, unable to believe his ears. Lin Yuntu continued to scold, mentioning the useless older sister and advising his son not to be tempted by bad girls. The son quickly reassured his father, forcing a smile and changing the subject to ask about his mother. Lin Yuntu sighed, saying his mother was out discussing business matters amid difficulties in their work. After talking with his father, the son proactively suggested calling his sister down for dinner, which surprised Lin Yuantu. He gently opened the bedroom door cautiously, preparing to call his sister out. The door slightly opened to reveal a girl wearing headphones, giggling to herself in the dark, making the younger brother curious. Chuzayo sat in front of the computer, wearing red headphones, her face excited. She was enthusiastically role-playing, loudly uttering provocative words at the screen. Chuzayo's hands quickly typed on the keyboard, promising to send rockets, a reward in the game, as if cheering for a live performance. Next to her was a box of tissues and some crumpled pieces of paper. Zheng quietly closed the door, his eyes vacant. He had just accidentally witnessed an unbelievable scene, his mind completely unsettled. Zheng's head spun as if he had fallen into a nightmare. Strange images appeared, reflecting the panic in his mind. Inside the room, Chuzayo leaned back in her chair, shouting in shock. She realized someone had just seen everything. The truth could no longer be hidden. Chuzayo angrily shouted after being interrupted, her sharp voice ringing through the headphones, her expression full of irritation. She stepped down onto the floor, the door creaked in the quiet space. Chuzayo yawned lightly and left the room, rubbing her eyes as if just waking from a strange dream. She appeared with a charming look and radiant aura, her eyes sparkling with petals decorating them like a reflection of inner satisfaction. After speaking, she leisurely turned her back and walked away, whistling as she headed to the kitchen, leaving a thigh frozen behind. A thigh smiled helplessly, unsure whether to laugh or cry at his sister's frighteningly carefree attitude. The afternoon sun dyed the entire building red, where Lin's family lived. In the peaceful living room, Lin Yuntu was peeling an apple, while Lin sat snacking on the opposite chair. A female figure approached. Chuzayo appeared in a sexy outfit, casually declaring she was going out to dinner with friends and asked her father for 1,000 yuan. Lin Yuntu frowned in confusion, peeling the apple while asking why his daughter needed to go out at this time. The two met in the kitchen. The younger brother stood silently, while Chuzayo exuded a radiant vibe that made the scene even more awkward. Athai sternly questioned his sister if she had just been watching porn in her room. Chuzayo casually replied that this era was the age of live streaming, and she had just watched a guy with an amazing body perform enthusiastically. With a proud attitude, she waved off her brother's judgment, asserting that this was not a matter for kids. Chuzayo's father angrily scolded his daughter, comparing her to her younger brother, saying if she were even half as good as him, the family wouldn't have to worry. Father and son both turned their heads toward the door, where a sound of opening had just occurred. A woman in a suit entered the house after a tiring day at work. It was Chu Tianan, the mother of the two children. She turned and left, humming happily while Chu D-1ECBCH stood silently watching, expressionless but inwardly troubled. Chu Zio casually replied that she needed to socialize with friends and discuss business, leaving Lin Yuantu silent, unable to hide his dissatisfaction. Chu Zio confidently retorted that her brother could marry a rich woman, but she had to take care of herself, so their parents should support her. As soon as she took the money, Chu Zio left. Her father reminded her not to waste it because earning money was not easy for her mother. The younger brother watched her leave and wondered if it was okay for his sister to go out like that. The father sighed helplessly, saying daughters couldn't be managed as strictly as sons. Just hoping she wouldn't cause trouble was enough. The son silently complained as he watched his sister leave. This world really favors women. Before she could rest, her son ran up and hugged her tightly, calling out affectionately, "Mom." Meanwhile, Chu Zio happily self-promoted. Does anyone know Nonstop Scans? Their Discord community is really awesome. Chu Zio laughed while glancing sideways, raising her eyebrows meaningfully, gently waving provocatively, telling her brother to join her. Chu Thier Nam hugged his mother tightly as she arrived home. She was surprised and asked her son why he was acting unusually, suspecting that he lacked pocket money. Without letting him answer, she quietly handed him a stack of cash, her eyes full of concern. Nam was stunned. Memories flashed through his mind. He used to secretly ask his mother for 10 yuan to play games, yet now she gave him money as if it was nothing. Nam tried to return the money, looked up at his mother, and gently said he no longer needed it. His mother smiled brightly. She softly told him to keep it because although the family was struggling, his academic achievements were her greatest pride. Chu Thiern Nam had just arrived home and immediately asked about his sister, his eyes full of worry. Her husband immediately showed irritation, cutting off the conversation when Chu Tieru was mentioned. Chu Thiern Nam sighed, blaming their daughter for still being playful and not realizing her future responsibilities. Sitting beside his wife, the husband nodded in agreement, completely submissive to her words. Witnessing this scene, the son was stunned, unable to accept that his parents had reversed their roles like that. The father gently embraced his wife, affirming that although men live easier lives, women have to work much harder. He believed their daughter would eventually understand everything because, after all, she was still their child. The son sat quietly in the back, sweating as he thought about his own future. Would he become like his father? In his imagination, he was surrounded by roses and a couple of men affectionately embracing, an image that made him shudder. Unable to bear the prospect, he immediately knelt down and vomited a rainbow, feeling both nauseous and miserable. He turned and walked away, leaving a weary message to his parents who were still entwined. "Mom, Dad, I'm going to my room." His face darkened, filled with disgust. He closed his eyes and breathed a sigh of relief, as if finally accepting the reality unfolding around him. A TH letter 1E7Y slowly opened his eyes, his sharp gaze revealing alertness and determination in the quiet light of night. His spirit swept through his parents' room, where both were sound asleep, unaware of the changes taking place. Continuing to move, his spirit silently inspected every corner, quietly observing even the cluttered study room with computers and scattered books. While closing his eyes to sense the surroundings, he suddenly noticed something unusual. His younger sister had not yet come home. Xiao Qing panicked upon realizing her situation was becoming serious. She began to feel scared and uneasy. The teenager entered his room, still annoyed after the awkward family meal. Before him was a bedroom filled with feminine colors, leaving him speechless. He was stunned by the new room. It was his own, and began to reflect on the reversal of gender values in the current world. Standing before the mirror, he pondered the injustice unfolding. Women needed material wealth to get a husband, while men only needed to be handsome to live off women. He silently turned away, his inner turmoil rising at the inverted reality, while his gaze gradually grew colder. A TH letter 1E7Y stood before his desk, admiring the cute and tidy decorations. Confidence rose within him, thinking that with this face, he could easily attract many girls. A TH letter 1E7Y gently opened the desk drawer with curiosity, not expecting to find something special inside. A bunch of colorful envelopes spilled out from the drawer, leaving him stunned. Each envelope bore a heart seal, indicating they were love letters sent quietly. He was shocked to see the letters falling to the floor, never expecting he had been the school belle of Jinmen high in the eyes of the female students. A TH letter 1E7Y sat cross-legged on the bed, his expression serious. Inside, he was determined to cultivate quickly to escape this inverted world. As he began to channel energy, the spiritual aura in the room thickened and purified. A TH letter 1E7Y sensed this was his chance to restore all the cultivation he had lost in the time-space palace. His body was immersed in a mystical blue light, energy surging, awakening the power hidden deep within his soul. A blurry image appeared in a TH letter 1E7Y's mind. It was the three family members in this world, smiling happily. He knew that only by opening the time-space gate could he return to the original world. Under the starry night, the building where he lived appeared quietly. In a TH letter 1E7Y's heart, there was only one thought: to leave this strange world as soon as possible. He continued to meditate, the spiritual power from the extreme path golden freedom technique beginning to spread, sharpening his senses more than ever. To test the effectiveness of his cultivation, a TH letter 1E7Y focused his mind, activating a stream of spirit as clear as water slipping out of the room. Remembering this was an inverted world, he sighed. Here, it was normal for women to stay out late at night. Just then the phone rang. The caller was his younger sister. He quickly answered, but before he could ask anything, the voice on the other end shouted in panic. I letter 1EC3 Uthan. Not understanding what was happening, he hurriedly said, "Listen to me first." But clearly a sense of unease was rising within him. A group of strangers was overpowering Xiao Qing, while a blue-haired girl ordered that no one inform the family or the police. At home, her younger brother received the call and was surprised to see his sister's number. He immediately asked about the situation with concern. However, Xiao Qing didn't let him speak, loudly cutting him off, leaving him confused about what was going on. A TH letter 1E7Y was stunned when he heard the urgent voice from the other end of the line. He quickly asked, "What happened?" From the phone, a trembling female voice sounded. The girl said there was a black bag under the bed and asked a TH letter 1E7Y to bring it to the Crescendo bar. But midway, the call was interrupted by a piercing scream. At the bar, a woman with green hair took control of the situation. She sneered coldly as she stepped on a TH letter 1E7Y's sister, forcing him to bring the bag to room 302 if he didn't want to see worse things happen. A TH letter 1E7Y silently hung up, his eyes darkened, saying nothing. He stared coldly at the phone. A surge of determination rose in his eyes, signaling that a TH letter 1E7Y would not let this end easily. The young man quickly searched under the bed and took out the instructed black bag. He slung the bag over his shoulder, stepped onto the windowsill, eyes resolute. "I won't let this happen." Without hesitation, he leapt off the building, plunging into the night with fierce determination. In midair, his eyes blazed with anger. "No one is allowed to touch my family." His body soared over rooftops, each jump tearing through the sky, heading toward where his sister was in danger. A TH letter 1E7Y quickly arrived in front of the Crescendo bar. The sign for room 302, where his sister was held, was clearly in sight. Without hesitation, a TH letter 1E7Y strode straight to room 302 with a cold face and the black bag on his shoulder. Seeing his sister restrained by two women, a TH letter 1E7Y shouted in panic, "I letter 1EC3 Uthan." A TH letter 1E7Y didn't negotiate. He immediately threw the black bag toward the captors, his gaze sharp and cold. Facing the kidnappers, a TH letter 1E7Y stood firm. "I've brought it. Release my sister." The green-haired girl stood up, her eyes shifting from mocking to serious, preparing for an important conversation. With a teasing tone, she stared at the teenager and sarcastically remarked that he looked cuter than in the photo. She stepped closer provocatively, asking his age, but he coldly replied that it didn't matter. Her harsh response left the green-haired girl speechless, struggling to contain her rising anger. They faced each other in tense silence, their serious eyes locked. The bag between them was like a battleground about to erupt. The green-haired woman opened the black bag, revealing a thick stack of cash inside, shaking the entire room. I letter 1EC3 Uthan was utterly shocked, screaming in panic upon seeing the money, completely clueless about what was happening. The young man named Chow looked at her with tired, mocking eyes, stating the money could be worth millions, but doubting she was truly unaware. I letter 1EC3 Uthan frantically explained that she was only holding the bag on I letter 1EC3 Lam's orders, and had no knowledge of the money inside. The green-haired woman flew into a rage, shouting that I letter 1EC3 Uthan dared to steal her money, and accusing I letter 1EC3 Lam of acting behind her back. The angry female leader ordered the release of the captive, her cold eyes warning Xiao Qing to leave before she changed her mind. Xiao Qing ran to hug the teenager, grateful to be rescued in a moment of danger. As they were about to leave, the female leader's cold voice rang out, stopping them unexpectedly. Xiao Qing froze, shivering inwardly. Things couldn't be that simple. The female leader curled her lips into a sinister smile, declaring she could leave, but the adorable little brother had to stay. In the chaos, the purple-haired girl rushed forward to block the teenager, her eyes full of determination, shouting loudly that no one would touch him. She turned to look straight at Joe, pleading with him not to involve her younger brother in the feud, demanding that he be released. Joe laughed loudly, sitting comfortably on the chair, smirking and saying that if he wanted to release the boy, then the one who should stay was her. Joe's face hardened, coldly warning that if she chose to leave, she should prepare to work until exhaustion and not blame him later. With no other choice, the girl gritted her teeth and endured, accepting to stay, her eyes filled with despair. The girl turned to Xiao Qing, her voice softening but firm. She told him to go back first because this place was not safe for a man, promising to handle everything herself. Xiao Qing quietly pushed her hand away, his gaze serious. He asked back reproachfully, "Do you really see me as someone without morals?" Without waiting any longer, Xiao Qing stepped firmly onto the platform, looking straight at the leader. He asked coldly, "Do you really want me to stay here?" The whole room fell silent as Xiao Qing faced the group. Purple lights shone down, separating him and the girl into two opposing sides. The gang leader sneered wickedly, his eyes fierce. He threatened to drag Xiao Qing to bed and torture him in every way, revealing his sick and brutal nature. Without another word, the teenager delivered a thunderous punch to the face of the blue-haired thug, blood splattering in a moment that stunned the entire room into silence. Xiao Qing stood frozen, eyes wide with shock as he witnessed the decisive strike from the person he thought needed protection. The blue-haired man tried to counterattack, throwing a deadly punch toward his opponent, his eyes bloodshot and veins bulging. Two punches collided amid crackling energy, thunder exploding at the center of the clash, blowing pressure away in all directions. A wave of white swept across, staggering the opponent, but the teenager remained steady within the energy light, his gaze cold and fearless. The young man smiled excitedly after the first punch, silently thinking that women in this world were truly stronger than he had imagined. Injured, the blue-haired man angrily ordered his subordinates to attack the young man without hesitation. Facing three enemies, the young man coldly challenged, "Attack me if you can." As soon as he finished speaking, he leapt forward, delivering a powerful blow that sent his opponent flying. Two of the blue-haired man's subordinates were caught in the whirlwind caused by the attack, screaming as they were thrown far away. After the brief battle, the teenager dusted off his hands, standing amid the chaotic scene, calmly declaring it was over and inviting his sister to leave. The blockers groaned under the hazy white smoke. The two siblings walked side by side, their backs seeming to evoke a sense of peace after the storm, but the danger was not truly over yet. Joe suddenly blocked their path with a gun pointed straight at them, threatening to shoot if they took another step. Her eyes blazed with murderous intent. The girl panicked, begging Joe to spare her younger brother, completely unwilling to push the situation to bloodshed again. Joe remained unflinching, smiled coldly, then raised her gun, declaring she would kill both of them regardless of any pleas. The confrontation had gone beyond the limits of negotiation. The young man placed his hand on the girl's shoulder, his gaze cold but resolute. He showed no fear of the gun pointed at them, calmly saying, "If that's what you want." The iron door suddenly opened, purple-pink light flooding into the gloomy room, signaling the arrival of a new force. A woman in a red cheongsam stepped out from behind the door, a cigarette smoke curling from her lips. She chuckled softly, "Ha ha, what an interesting scene." The powerful woman strode in, followed by two bodyguards dressed in black. She asked casually with a sharp smile, "Why wasn't I invited to this party?" And the story ended dramatically. The woman suddenly exclaimed upon seeing the male lead, calling him Chu Qing with a mix of surprise and excitement. In the distance, Chu Qing and the girl accompanying him paused and looked toward the newcomer. Chu Qing was shocked as he recalled unpleasant memories with that woman, from being forced to being controlled. He silently thought to himself, "It's her again." The woman smiled and asked, "Why are you here?" Chu Qing kept a serious expression as he answered, realizing that this place actually belonged to her. The blue-haired woman, named Zhou Yun, still holding a gun, suddenly interrupted, declaring she would handle Chu Qing herself and ordered the woman to retreat. Zhou Yun became furious, shouting that if the other party dared to interfere, it would be breaking the rules, her eyes full of anger and warning. Zhou Yun glanced coldly, her sharp eyes responding to the threat, breaking the rules. Without hesitation, she gave a ruthless order. Capture her, chop off her limbs, and throw her out on the street. The blue-haired girl froze, her eyes filled with fear as two bodyguards approached like threatening shadows. Restrained, the girl hurriedly begged, "I'm sorry, please spare me." Jo Yun paused for a moment, coldly revising the order. "Actually, just one hand and one leg will do." Jo Yun smiled charmingly, saying that dealing with the girl was a gift for Chu Qing, then asked if he liked it. Chu Qing looked straight into Jo Yun's eyes, coldly asking if she was pretending to be kind to him. Jo Yun smiled brightly, admitting that Chu Qing was the first man to dare speak to her like that, someone different from the rest. Without hesitation, Jo Yun raised her hand to lift Chu Qing's chin, declaring she had chosen him as her 36th boyfriend. Chu Qing decisively pushed her hand away, flatly refusing and showing surprise at the idea of becoming the 36th boyfriend. The woman in red sarcastically said that with such a small figure, Chu Qing was only fit to be Jo Yun's gigolo. Chu Qing smirked confidently, retorting by questioning if she really wanted to compare strength with him. The purple-haired girl anxiously pulled Chu Qing's hand, reminding him that the opponent was far stronger. Jo Yun smiled provocatively, mocking that Chu Qing was being too arrogant. Chu Qing seriously issued a challenge. If he won, she must promise never to bother him again. Chengxi smirked provocatively, mocking Chu Qing for daring to challenge her as a man. Chu Qing responded with a cold smile, asking in return if Chengxi was afraid. Chengxi laughed loudly, confidently declaring her identity and affirming there was nothing she couldn't do. She continued to state her condition. If she won, Chu Qing must be her boyfriend. Chu Qing did not hesitate, immediately agreeing to the challenge, his eyes full of determination. On the brightly lit stage, Chu Qing and Tran Hai sat facing each other, neither willing to yield in their gaze. Chen Zai unleashed her full power, her momentum exploding amid the dazzling light, shaking the entire audience. Chen Zai was momentarily startled, her eyes revealing surprise at the opponent's unexpected reaction. While the surrounding audience whispered and gossiped, the three girls below were both surprised and excited, clearly underestimating Chu Qing's chances of winning. Chu Than pondered deeply, realizing that in this world, women always hold absolute dominance and look down on men. Tran Hai smiled confidently, declaring that she would teach Chu Than the true difference between men and women, like heaven and earth. The arm wrestling match officially began, both exerting all their strength, with light and momentum exploding around the stage. Chu Qing was under relentless pressure, secretly amazed by the superior strength of the women in this world, but still held firm. With a serious gaze, Chu Qing unleashed his hidden power, declaring that he was no ordinary person. Chu Qing gathered all his strength to counterattack, delivering the decisive move in the arm wrestling match, completely overwhelming Chen Zai. Chen Zai froze, her eyes wide with astonishment as she witnessed Chu Qing's unimaginable strength. In response to the provocation about breaking the rules, Chen Zai gave a cold half-smile, her sharp eyes as if ready to punish someone. Without hesitation, she gave a ruthless order to her subordinates: cut off the hands and feet of those who dared to offend and throw them out on the street as a warning. The short-haired girl panicked and collapsed before two men in black suits, surrounded before she could resist. She hurriedly begged for mercy, screaming in despair as she was dragged away, but Chen Zai still turned her back and walked away coldly. Chen Zai stopped, glanced back, and coldly ordered again, "Just cut off one hand and one foot is enough." Her cruelty remained undiminished. Chen Zai gritted her teeth, denying defeat, raising her head to declare to the crowd that she had not yet lost to Chu Qing. On the brightly lit stage, Chen Zai continued to invite Chu Qing to become her husband, promising to protect him from all other women in Jinmen. Chu Qing was silent, his eyes lowered, while the girl accompanying him anxiously watched his reaction. In the distance, a girl holding a glass of wine laughed scornfully, doubting whether Chu Qing was still sane. She laughed scornfully, saying that this was so obvious that even a child could understand. Tran Hai smiled softly, firmly affirming, "That man is great, just my type, I won't let go." Night fell, the crescent moon hung suspended in the starry sky, signaling the passage of time. He raised his head to rebut, affirming that men do not need to depend on women. They can walk on their own feet. Dense energy began swirling around Chu Qing, marking a new breakthrough in his cultivation process. Zai stood in the middle of the stage under bright lights, confidently declaring that men have always been the ones pursued by women. She asserted that women are the pillars of the world, deciding morality and humanity's masterpieces. A shockwave shot straight at Chu Qing, carrying a teasing voice that made his face flush red, nearly losing control while meditating. At a nearby table, 3 other girls agreed. One spoke up. Men are not without value, but women are the center of modern society. Chu Qing stepped forward, stamping his shoe hard on the floor, breaking the complacent atmosphere. He faced Zai and calmly asked back, "And what does that have to do with me?" Chu Qing raised his thumb, declaring that men are constantly striving to rise and become stronger. He smiled confidently, affirming that men work, get rewarded, and sometimes just need a pair of beautiful legs to lean on. As Chu Qing left with another girl, Tran Hai's gaze followed them silently, lost in thought. A female bodyguard stepped forward, softly calling, "Miss Deep," as if waiting for new orders from her mistress. The sky was clear, white clouds drifting slowly, signaling a new day beginning. The words Jinmen High School appeared, opening a new setting for Chu Qing's next journey. Chu Qing walked into the schoolyard confidently, his eyes looking forward as if ready to face new challenges at school. The person who appeared was a chubby boy with a graceful walk, so confident that flowers and leaves seemed to flutter around him. It was Lin Dong. Chu Qing froze, looking at his friend with an incredulous expression, awkwardly thinking to himself, "Is that my best friend Lin Dong?" A man wearing dark glasses approached Yi, reminding her that it was time to return immediately. Yi retorted that she had only been out for 2 days and saw no reason to return. She also requested not to be called by that title while her sister was still alive. On the way back, the pink-haired girl anxiously begged Chu Qing not to tell their parents about what happened today. Chu Qing disagreed, seriously emphasizing that without his help, things could have gotten out of control and their parents would definitely be worried. The pink-haired girl angrily jumped up, shouting as she felt threatened, while Chu Qing completely ignored her, his face cold as ice. After a moment of thought, the girl suddenly suggested that Chu Qing marry Deep Then High, the powerful heir of Jinmen. Chu Qing turned his back, replying coldly that if he married Deep Then High, she would benefit despite being older than him. Unable to tolerate such practicality, Chu Qing growled that he would throw her back to the bar if she said more, causing her to immediately fall silent. The story closed in the peaceful night scene, the moon hanging high above the rooftops, hinting at a new chapter ahead. Chu Qing meditated in the dark, a pale blue aura surrounding his body. He told himself to quickly attain true strength. Although still weak now, through rigorous training, he had enhanced his vision and senses. Meanwhile, his younger sister wore headphones and laughed mischievously, shouting loudly through the screen, "Brother, hurry up and take off your pants, I can't wait any longer." Chu Qing ruffled his hair, annoyed, thinking silently, "This pervert, even worse than my sister in my original world." He couldn't understand how someone like her appeared in his life. A fresh morning at Jinmen High School, the sky was clear and the sunlight bright, marking the start of a new school day full of upheaval. A sudden call rang out from afar. Someone was running with fierce momentum, calling his name, Chu Qing. Lin Dong held Chu Qing's hand emotionally, questioning why his friend hadn't answered the phone all this time. Chu Qing was stunned, immediately pulling his hand back as if attacked by an overly feminine aura. Lin Dong looked worried upon hearing that Chu Qing had trouble yesterday. Chu Qing forced a smile, avoided the question, and quickly withdrew to escape the conversation. Watching Lin Dong from afar, Chu Qing silently denied their relationship, telling himself, "That guy is not my friend at all." In the classroom, the atmosphere was lively with the laughter and chatter of students. Everyone was busy with their own matters, paying no attention to Chu Qing's presence. With his head down on the desk, Chu Qing sank into despair. He felt he could no longer continue living in this world. A finger suddenly poked lightly at his shoulder. Someone was trying to get Chu Qing's attention. Chu Qing looked up with a vague and suspicious gaze, not yet understanding what was happening. In front of him was Songcha Oran, the class monitor, with a gentle, caring look. She asked, "Chu Qing, are you okay?" Chu Qing scratched his head awkwardly, smiling wryly with a simple excuse. He skipped breakfast, so he was hungry now. Sancha Aran awkwardly offered to share her food with Chu Ching, worried he needed to stay healthy for the upcoming university entrance exam. Suddenly, Aran became angry, turning to someone else and shouting loudly, protecting Chu Ching by preventing anyone from approaching him. In front of her stood a female student with a seductive appearance, confident and full of the big sister aura, unafraid of Aran's gaze. The red-haired girl immediately pushed Aran away, put her arm around Chu Ching intimately, and asked directly, "Have you read my love letter yet?" Startled by the red-haired girl's excessive closeness, Chu Ching suddenly shouted, "Get away!" and delivered a powerful strike that sent her flying backward, crashing into the classroom furniture. The whole class was stunned to see Chu Ching standing in the middle of the classroom, extremely angry. No one dared to speak, and the atmosphere became suffocating under his fury. The red-haired girl got up angrily, shouting insults at Chu Ching, calling him a worthless man with no right to resist. Refusing to back down, she lunged forward with a fierce punch aimed straight at Chu Ching's face, declaring she would teach him a lesson. But just as the punch was about to land, a powerful voice rang out, "Stop!" A third person appeared, intervening just in time, leaving the whole class stunned. A male student with bright hair and sharp eyes entered the classroom, his serious face signaling that something important was about to happen. The red-haired girl widened her eyes in surprise upon seeing him, shouting, "Yimao, what are you doing here?" Yimao did not flinch, his cold gaze responding to her surprise with a silent warning. The red-haired girl immediately stepped back, mumbling, "I'm leaving, because Yi Chengxi is your sister," then hurriedly ran away, leaving a noisy crowd behind. Yimao turned to Chu Ching, his expression softening. "Chu Ching, I have something to talk to you about. Are you free?" On the upper floor hallway of the school, Chu Ching and Yimao stood side by side, looking out at the distant blue sky. The atmosphere between them was somewhat quiet, as if about to start a serious conversation. Yimao bowed his head apologetically for what happened yesterday. He heard that his sister got into trouble, and when he tried to ask someone to help Chu Ching, he couldn't locate him. The scene shifted to the past, a peaceful afternoon with a clear blue sky, signaling the beginning of a flashback to yesterday. In front of the gate of a luxurious villa, Chu Ching, Yimao, and a long-haired girl stood beside a white sports car, preparing for an important trip. Yimao told Chu Ching that he had something to do, so his sister Yi Chengxi would take Chu Ching home. The girl beside them had sharp eyes, radiating a strong and cold aura. On a quiet road through the forest, the white car sped away, taking Chu Ching out of the wealthy neighborhood. Inside the car, Chu Ching was surprised when the woman beside him handed him a bottle of water. She smiled mysteriously, telling him to drink the water if he felt thirsty. Without any suspicion, Chu Ching raised the bottle to drink, completely unaware of what was about to happen. In the present, Yimao bowed his head remorsefully, apologizing for letting his sister carry out that shady plan without knowing. Chu Ching placed his hand on Yimao's shoulder, reassuring him that there was no need to blame himself. He invited Yimao to return to class together. After school, Chu Ching walked out of the school gate with a gloomy face, quietly avoiding the gazes of the surrounding students. While walking on the sidewalk, a car stopped right beside him, causing Chu Ching to turn around in surprise. The woman sitting in the car was Yimao's sister. She signaled for Chu Ching to get in with a commanding tone. Chu Ching's eyes widened in confusion, a question bursting in his mind. "Really? Is she still following me now?" Sitting in the car, the red-haired woman curled her lips in a warning, her voice sweet but containing a threat. She reminded Chu Ching of his family, implicitly setting conditions that he could not easily resist. In response, Chu Ching gave a half-smile full of meaning. In his eyes, that provocation was nothing less than a challenge, and he was ready to face it. Chu Ching smiled mysteriously after hearing the woman's implicit threat. The red-haired girl looked pleased, her eyes full of interest as she called him cutie. Chu Ching remained calm but cold, warning that touching his family would be the biggest mistake. The woman curled her lips, responding with a teasing question, denying any intention to threaten. Chu Ching touched the sparkling crystal hanging in the car, affirming that whether it was a threat or not, she would mention it sooner or later. When the crystal exploded, A dazzling light spread throughout the space, marking the moment Chu Qing counterattacked. The girl in red was horrified, not expecting the crystal to be shattered in an instant. Chu Qing grabbed her chin, his cold and intimidating gaze clearly declaring the consequences if she dared to threaten him again. The girl hurriedly explained, softening her tone, insisting she had no intention to threaten but wanted to help his family. Chu Qing gave a half-smile, his tone sarcastic, believing she was just pretending to be kind and pitying him. The woman actively met Chu Qing's cold gaze, calmly confessing she would pursue him openly, starting from friendship before helping his family with business matters. She gently stroked Chu Qing's chin, her confident smile as if she already held the winning hand. Chu Qing sighed, leaned back in his seat, and half-jokingly agreed, starting as friends then. Although agreeing, Chu Qing still warned coldly, affirming he understood her intentions and demanded she not bother him again. The woman glanced over irritably but restrained herself, curtly replying, "Hurry up," while muttering to herself, calling him "this kid," both helpless and surprised to be led by the nose. The car sped down the road, wind blowing leaves, signaling a conversation full of hidden meanings continuing inside the cabin. Chu Qing looked out the window, his eyes thoughtful. Suddenly he spoke up, wanting to ask an important question. The woman driving glanced at him, straightforwardly asking, "Do you practice ancient martial arts?" Chu Qing shook his head in denial, looking surprised. He reiterated the fact that men in this world cannot cultivate. The girl smiled lightly, her eyes sharp. She admitted to investigating him and suspected he was hiding a great secret about his true power. The car sped through the forest, the tense atmosphere still enveloping the space inside the cabin. Chu Qing propped his chin, looking out as the sunset fell, quietly saying he had something to ask. The red-haired girl turned, her sharp eyes looking directly at Chu Qing, seriously asking if he had ever practiced ancient martial arts. Chu Qing feigned surprise and denied, replying that men in this world cannot cultivate, trying to hide the truth. The girl smiled softly, revealing she had previously investigated his family background and unusual strength, firmly believing he was hiding an important secret. After the violent collision, the car flipped over, white smoke rising thickly amid the cold and ruined road. Chu Qing lay motionless with a bruised face and slight bleeding, his trembling hand trying to move, someone anxiously calling her name. Her finger gently raised, sunlight piercing through the smoke shining on her hand full of wounds and broken glass dust. The male lead was injured but still struggled to shield her, his angry eyes blazing when seeing Chu Qing's current condition. Chu Qing woke up, seeing the male lead bleeding, her eyes panicked and choked. "Chu Qing, you're hurt." Chu Qing immediately supported the girl who was falling, her eyes flashing alertness as she sensed the danger was not over. A heavy object suddenly struck the car roof, causing a violent explosion accompanied by a roaring sound. Amid the broken glass, Chu Qing tightly held the girl, using his injured arm to clear a path to escape from the collapsing car. Despite being wounded all over, he still carried the girl and jumped away from the scene, urging to go to the hospital immediately. But the girl spoke seriously, her cold eyes believing the matter was not over. Another threat was approaching. As the fog gradually cleared, a group of figures appeared from the mist, all powerful feminine silhouettes. 5 women appeared, holding wooden sticks, their cold eyes advancing forward. They were the ones behind the collision, and now the real nightmare was beginning. Chu Qing clenched his fists tightly, glaring furiously at the enemy who had just injured him. Iller stood beside him, her gaze cold and resolute. With eyes blazing with anger, Iller declared she would destroy anyone who dared to harm her people. The group of armed women charged forward aggressively, unaware that they were facing an opponent far beyond their imagination. Iller delivered a precise kick, knocking down the opponent with the very first strike, her movement so fast the enemy had no time to react. One of the remaining enemies aimed a weapon at Chu Qing, but he stood still, his eyes calm and ready to respond. Chu Qing unleashed a thunderous kick, knocking the opponent down with such force that the weapon in their hand flew out of reach. The enemy was blasted far away, lying unconscious on the ground, while Chu Qing clenched his fists, his gaze determined. On the other side, the red-haired girl was kicked in the chest by Chu Qing, sent flying through the enemy circle, scattering them in disarray. The male lead grabbed a knife that had just fallen to the ground, his eyes cold, ready to enter the battle. A brilliant golden light enveloped his entire body, his aura bursting forth, ready to charge like a lightning bolt. As Chu Than was being surrounded and attacked, a sudden golden light descended from above. It was Chu Than charging in with fierce momentum. In the blink of an eye, he unleashed a thunderous strike that sent the entire attacking group flying, blood splattering everywhere. The two remaining enemies had no time to react before they were horrified to see their comrades defeated right before their eyes. Deep Then Hai rushed forward, her eyes blazing, unleashing a powerful palm strike into the midst of the battle. She charged into the encirclement, delivering the heavenly soul slash that stunned the opponents, a strong counterattack full of deadly intent. After the fierce battle, Chu Than and the girl stood proudly among the defeated enemies, breathing heavily but with determined eyes. The girl smiled brightly, praising Chu Than for his excellent fighting, her eyes full of admiration and relief. Chu Than humbly replied, admitting that she was the one who handled most of the situation, gently handing back the sword. The girl pondered, saying that without Chu Than, she would have been in trouble. Then she suggested finding a place for dinner to relax and recover. But Chu Than politely declined, saying it was too late and his father would worry, promising to have dinner together another time. When the battle ended, the girl's phone rang, breaking the quiet moment after the chaos. She immediately answered, her voice urgent as she asked the caller what had happened. Hearing the information over the phone, Chu Qing was startled and horrified, his face showing disbelief. Seeing the girl's sad and confused expression, Chu Qing stood beside her, wondering what was going on. But then he thought to himself that it was none of his business, a normal student who could not get involved in others' family troubles. As Athai turned to leave, the girl suddenly grabbed his hand, lowering her gaze, her voice choked. "Please don't go." Her emotions seemed to weigh down the entire space. She looked up, tears welling up. Her mother had been attacked just like them and was now at home in a dangerous condition. Her face was filled with pain and extreme worry. Athai looked at her seriously. Two attacks happening simultaneously could not be a coincidence. He realized some hidden force was beginning to shake their world. The darkness was approaching. A TH letter 1E7Y was suddenly held back by the girl. She lowered her head, her voice urgent, radiating a strange pressure. "Don't go." She tearfully recounted that her mother had been attacked, just like what they had just experienced. Currently, her mother was still at home, seriously injured. A TH letter 1E7Y sternly concluded that the ambush on both mother and daughter was not a coincidence. This was a sign that the dark forces in the underworld were moving. The girl was desperate. If her mother died, her aunt would take control and push her out of the family. With no one by her side, she silently asked, "What should I do?" A TH letter 1E7Y softened his voice to reassure her. He promised to go with her. Although not strong enough to help, he still wanted to be by her side, encouraging her to stay strong because the whole family was counting on her. The girl in his arms closed her eyes tightly, her face pressed against his shoulder as if trying to hold on to the rare warmth amid the long, uneasy night. The moon quietly hung high, illuminating the Yi family mansion, where the girl's fate was about to take a dangerous turn. Yi Lin and the young man stood shoulder to shoulder in front of the Yi family gate. Her eyes were determined, resolved to face everything despite her body being torn and battered after the battle. A middle-aged servant hurriedly ran out from the mansion, his face panicked upon seeing Yi Lin, repeatedly calling out, "Miss, you finally came." Yi Lin did not hesitate and immediately asked about the situation inside in a serious tone. She knew every minute and second was precious now. The butler reported with tension that the situation was chaotic, and only the young lady was allowed inside by Yi Mei's order. The girl angrily shouted because Yi Mei stopped her, while Chu Qing beside her curiously asked about the identity of that woman. She revealed that Yi Mei was her aunt, who had been suspected of colluding with other families and had now taken action first, surprising her. Not wasting any more time, she turned to Chu Qing and firmly ordered, "Chu Qing, follow me." However, as they reached the mansion gate, The guards immediately blocked them, suspicious of Chu Qing's identity and not allowing him to enter. Facing the guards' obstruction, Iller angrily spoke up, asserting his rights and defending Chu Qing as an honored guest. Chu Qing calmly replied, claiming to be a doctor who came to check on Iller's mother's condition, while secretly recalling the medical knowledge he had studied for 500 years in the cultivation world. With overwhelming momentum, Iller shouted, demanding to see his mother and requiring Yi Mei to be present to explain everything. A proud woman appeared, Yi Mei herself. She pretended to scold Iller for disrespecting her elders and demanded to be called aunt. Meanwhile, the two guards showed contempt for Chu Qing, mocking the idea that a man could be a doctor in a female-dominated world. Chu Qing did not hesitate, bluntly exposing the female guard's hidden illness, a prolonged infection caused by excessive martial arts training and ineffective traditional medicine. He continued to point out the reason she had to take so much medicine, leaving the female guard embarrassed and unable to refute. Faced with Chu Qing's knowledge and confidence, the guards had to step back and politely invited both inside the mansion. As they entered, a familiar voice sounded. The woman before them was D.I. letter 1EC7 PTH letter 1EA7N Hai's aunt, Yi Mei. Yi Mei appeared with her daughter Yi Meyer, feigning concern but with a completely fake attitude. The family confrontation was about to begin. Yi Mei pointed at Chu Qing, criticizing him for bringing a strange man home, as the Yi family rules forbade men from entering. Chengxi calmly responded, affirming that Chu Qing was a doctor she invited and requested to be allowed inside. Yi Mei coldly ordered her daughter Meyer to check whether Chu Qing was truly as talented as rumored, and Meyer immediately obeyed. Yi Mei sneered, doubting Chu Qing's identity, thinking he was just an ex-lover she had brought home a few days ago. Yi Mei warned Chu Qing that if he wanted to become a member of the Yi family, he had to prove his ability. Otherwise, he would never be allowed to pass through this gate. Meyer stepped out of the mansion, eyes full of confidence, striding straight toward Yi Chengxi and Chu Qing as if certain of victory. Mrs. Yi Mei coldly watched her daughter leave, silently thinking that if Meyer harmed Chu Qing, Yi Chengxi would definitely break the rules to protect him, an action no one, not even her mother, could save her from. Meyer smiled seductively, approached Chu Qing and provocatively said, "If I win, you have to promise me one thing." Chu Qing tilted his head slightly, raised an eyebrow and smiled sarcastically. "What?" Meyer leaned in close, eyes full of implication. "Promise me that you will sleep and make love with me for one night." Chengxi angrily shouted, criticizing Yi Meyer for the ridiculous proposal just made, her eyes full of anger and determination. Chu Qing suddenly grabbed Chengxi's wrist, stopping her before the situation got out of control. He gently reassured her, agreeing to participate in the challenge calmly, still holding Chengxi's hand tightly as if to give her confidence. As soon as the words ended, a sudden attack was launched. Chu Qing immediately became alert, everything became tense in an instant. Yi Meyer suddenly delivered a powerful kick aimed at Chu Qing. He quickly blocked it, realizing that the earlier seductive words were just a distraction tactic. Chu Thanzai angrily shouted, condemning Yi Meyer for crossing the line and insulting others right in front of them. Chu Thanzai was pulled back by a firm grip from Chu Than, as if preventing her from acting impulsively. Chu Than stepped forward, decisively accepting the challenge from Yi Meyer. His eyes were calm but full of determination. As soon as the fight began, Chu Than immediately charged like a whirlwind, ready to confront the strong opponent directly in front of him. Yi Meyer suddenly unleashed a very strong kick, but Chu Than reacted instantly, barely blocking it and realizing she was only using sweet words to distract him. Ignoring the accusations from Yi Mei, the young man remained silent standing there, while Chengxi lowered her head, feeling heavy-hearted. In a luxurious corridor, a blonde woman wearing glasses stood silently waiting in front of a door. Upon hearing the call, "Aunt," the woman turned around. She was Chengxi's aunt. Chengxi rushed to embrace her aunt emotionally. All the accumulated worries finally loosened. Chengxi hurriedly asked about her mother. Her aunt replied, the injury was very severe and her mother was currently under special monitoring. Seeing the critical situation, the young man suggested not to delay and to immediately check Yi Chengxi's mother's condition to find ways to help. Chengxi's aunt was surprised to see the stranger accompanying her and immediately asked Chengxi about the young man's identity. The young man responded with a calm smile, saying briefly, "Trust me." Chengxi turned and explained that he was her friend who had saved her during an ambush, and most importantly, he was also a doctor. The scene shifted to a quiet room, with a small table and a neatly arranged fruit plate, signaling preparations for an important meeting about to take place. Chengxi rushed to her mother's bedside, anxiously asking if she was okay while everyone silently stood behind. The mother woke up, sighed in relief upon seeing her daughter, but immediately shifted her gaze to the stranger and asked a question. The young man introduced himself as a doctor, entrusted by Chengxi to care for her mother, while silently thinking about his own family waiting at home. The mother smiled lightly, refusing help because she knew the injury was beyond saving, then requested to speak privately with her daughter. The blonde woman stepped forward, signaling the young man to leave the room and leading him elsewhere. The young man stood silently in the shadows, his eyes distant as if pondering something deep and unspeakable. Ymir stepped forward with confident eyes and a proud smile, attracting all attention from both the male lead and Yi Chengxi. An older woman with a stern face spoke a warning. If Meyer hurt Yi Chengxi's people, even her mother could not protect her. Yi Meyer looked at the male lead with seductive eyes and said challengingly, "Hey, handsome, if I win, promise me one thing." The male lead tilted his head and asked cautiously, "What?" Meyer casually proposed, "Promise to sleep and make love with me for one night," suddenly making the atmosphere tense. Chengxi was embarrassed when her aunt pulled her away. She did not understand why her mother wanted to be alone with the strange teenager. The door closed, leaving the teenager facing the woman lying on the bed, Chengxi's mother. With sharp eyes, she sternly questioned, "Did the Li family send you? What is your purpose with Chengxi?" He coldly replied, "Sorry, I am not from the Li family." Not showing any weakness, he continued, "If you have questions, you should ask your daughter why she cares about me, and if I hadn't saved her, by now you would only see her corpse." Chengxi's mother pondered for a moment, then decided to trust the young man after hearing his convincing explanation. She slowly pulled her shirt, preparing to reveal the wound for the young man to examine, showing a tacit agreement with her fragile trust. As she took off her shirt, the young man was stunned to the point of a nosebleed, while Chengxi's mother kept a stern warning tone. If he had bad intentions toward her daughter, he would not survive. He embarrassedly covered his face, blushing shyly, reminding himself that although young, he was still a man, unable to endure this situation. His eyes suddenly widened, shining with intense focus. It seemed something special appeared before him. The mother sat with her back turned, revealing a dark wound spreading across the left side of her back, a cruel mark from a previous attack. The teenager frowned worriedly as he witnessed the extent of the injury. He warned that without treatment, her internal organs would be destroyed within 5 days. The mother turned around, calmly asking him directly, "Can you do anything about this condition?" The teenager responded decisively, placing his hand on her back, preparing to begin a risky healing therapy. A powerful energy radiated, enveloping both of them. The mother gritted her teeth enduring the pain, but was also amazed by the strange sensations spreading through her body. The young man began healing by touching the wounded area on her back. A bright energy started spreading around the dark spot. The woman reacted strongly as the energy entered her body, sweating profusely and her face flushed red. The teenager concentrated all his spirit, momentum, and strength. The energy surrounding him exploded, forming a blazing energy ring. Panting, he admitted his limits. He dared not absorb all the evil energy at once for fear of causing unintended consequences. The woman smiled, relieved. Though she did not understand how he did it, the important thing was she felt noticeably healthier. After being healed, the woman smiled gently and asked the young man, "How can I thank you? Do you want anything?" The teenager smiled politely, replying, "No need. Chengxi is a good friend of mine, helping her is natural." The woman laughed teasingly, "Right, just friends, I almost forgot." Night had fallen. Chengxi stood with him in front of the house gate, yellow lights softly shining through the leaves. She looked at him gratefully. You're really good. I didn't expect you could heal my mother like that. Chengxi suddenly grabbed his hand, an action that surprised him before he could react. She hugged him tightly, whispering softly but with hidden meaning, "Don't leave tonight, I have a small gift for you." Iller was startled when his mother pulled him away without understanding what was happening. He tried to resist but couldn't. The door closed, and the teenage boy in a blue hoodie entered the room, facing the woman sitting on the bed, Iller's mother. The stern woman questioned him, whether he was sent by the Lai family and what his intentions were with her daughter. He calmly denied any connection to the Lai family, showing his honesty. He explained further, it was Iller who took the initiative to approach, and without his help, she would now only be able to see her daughter as a corpse. On the way back in the car, the teenage boy clenched his fist tightly, his eyes serious as he observed the dark energy still clinging to his hand. Morning came, white clouds drifting slowly across the clear blue sky, signaling the start of a new day. He stepped through the school gate, feeling relieved that the therapy session was over and no one was suspicious. As he arrived, he heard cheers, "Tang Zian, keep it up," making him stunned. That name sounded very familiar. A purple-haired girl with an athletic figure leapt into the air, graceful and full of vitality, attracting all eyes. On the basketball court, the purple-haired girl jumped high like an arrow, performing a perfect dunk amid the amazed gazes of the girls. Her red shoes touched the ground after a gentle landing, confirming her perfect control in every movement. Sweat dotted her beautiful face. Tang Zian maintained a calm expression as if the performance was just a small matter. From afar, the teenage boy silently watched the purple hair fluttering in the wind, his eyes slightly shaken. It really is her. Memories flooded back to his heart, recalling the kiss between Tang Zian and the boy amid a scene of blooming flowers, a love that once existed before. In a nostalgic scene, the pink-haired girl looked into the distance, confessing that that boy was her first love in high school. As he reached the school gate, the boy was lost in thought, while the friends behind were busy expressing admiration for Tang Zian, the school's goddess. The lively classmates cheered and praised Tang Zian as a genius, melting their hearts, making the boy dazed by her fame. He suddenly remembered that this was another world, where the two had never met, and moving forward too soon might only cause embarrassment. But then he smiled lightly. At least they were attending the same school, and that gave him a chance to start over. The male student shouted loudly, calling the girl back as he caught a glimpse of a familiar figure passing by. Tang Zian stopped, looking at him suspiciously. "Have I met you somewhere before?" But then she waved it off, not wanting to think further. "Never mind, it's okay." The girl turned around, holding out a basketball with a determined look. "Want to play? I'll teach you." She stared at him, lowering her voice seriously. "I'm not talking about that." The teenage boy looked intently at her, quietly thinking. No matter the world, that girl was always curious about him. Tang Zian held the ball and challenged. If she won, he had to become her boyfriend. He was stunned by the bold proposal. News about the match between Tang Zian and the talented male student spread quickly across the school, sparking endless chatter among students. The atmosphere grew tense as Tang Zian charged forward, her eyes determined, ready to start the fateful game. The teenage boy smiled vaguely, as if he had already predicted what was about to happen. Just as Tang Zian was about to dribble, the boy suddenly stole the ball right in front of her, making her momentarily surprised. He turned around, spun the ball on one finger, and smiled provocatively. "Let's play." Tang Zian immediately counterattacked, performing a crossover to surpass him with astonishing speed. She jumped confidently, throwing the ball right before the amazed eyes of the fallen opponent. The ball flew cleanly into the basket, making a perfect shot amid cheers from those outside the court. The teenage boy smiled confidently, looking up and asking back, "So what if I win?" Tang Zian looked straight into his eyes and decisively replied, "Then I will do whatever you want." His expression immediately froze, eyes full of surprise, not expecting such a bold response. The match continued. Tang Zian dribbled forward with momentum. The distant crowd cheered, "She's the best, she will definitely win." Tang Zian stood before the basket, turning back with a determined look. I won't give up because I really want to win you over. The male student smiled confidently, gently stretching his wrist and said challengingly, try again. The red ball bounced continuously on the court, the rapid sound echoing as the game continued. T-letter 1ED Yarn bent down, slipped past the male student with lightning speed, dribbling forward to attack. The girl jumped high into the air, ball in hand, ready to perform a slam dunk with fierce determination. In that moment in the air, T-letter 1ED Yarn's eyes flashed with surprise, as if she had just discovered something unexpected. A TH letter 1E7Y jumped high, blocking Tang Xian's decisive shot right before the rim. The ball bounced back with great force, producing a reverberating sound that stunned everyone. The students outside the court were amazed, both terrified and excited by the incredible block. A TH letter 1E7Y took advantage of the moment, soaring into the air, preparing for a spectacular counterattack. Landing gently, a TH letter 1E7Y smiled confidently. Now it's my turn. Tang Xian looked intently, with determination never seen before, as if preparing for something great. At that moment, the boy suddenly accelerated, rushing straight toward her with confident eyes and unwavering demeanor. Xian looked up, astonished to see him leap powerfully beyond her reach, carrying the ball with momentum. In the next moment, the boy decisively dunked, finishing with a perfect dunk against the clear blue sky. The ball fell, bouncing silently, while Tang Xian stood frozen, her eyes reflecting shock and daze. Tang Xian stood still, admitting defeat with a heavy expression. She looked up at him, keeping her promise. Tell me, what do I have to do for you? He reached out his hand, a gentle moment between the two seeming to freeze in time. With a mischievous smile, he lightly pinched Xian's cheek. Will you go out with me? The crowd around went wild, cheering amidst a sea of flowers. This school is amazing, they're really cute. The crescent moon hung suspended in the night sky, light from the villa shining out, signaling a night not yet over. In the male lead's imagination, a seductive maid called him master and invited punishment, making him drool endlessly. Caught with a suspicious expression, the boy fumbled and said he needed time to think carefully about the reward, while the girl looked at him suspiciously. Tang Xian laughed mysteriously, as if holding the upper hand. She turned back, eyes determined, declaring, Want to date me? You have to be stronger first. A TH letter 1E7Y stood still, unable to believe his ears when hearing the unexpected request from DI letter 1EC7P TH letter 1EA7N high. He frowned, thinking silently, since when did she become so confident? Night fell, light quietly spilling from the room, signaling a turning point. A TH letter 1E7Y focused on training beside the injured woman. DI letter 1EC7P TH letter 1E7N high's mother. Within the blazing energy flow, he clearly felt a breakthrough, a 30% improvement in soul and vital energy. DI letter 1EC7P TH letter 1EA7N high approached, her gaze soft but resolute, asking, What reward do you want for saving my mother and me? A TH letter 1E7Y froze, surprised by the question full of meaning and a hint of affection from that girl. On the way home on a bright moonlit night, Chu Than walked while reflecting on his cultivation process. He was confident that as long as he completely healed Ant Deep, he would be able to fully awaken his spiritual body. A purple luxury car sped up and stopped right in front of Chu Than. The door opened, revealing a person stepping out wearing shiny gold-plated shoes. A flashy dresser with purple hair and black sunglasses appeared, accompanied by a curly-haired woman in a vest. The purple light from the car made them look even more bizarre. The purple-haired man stepped closer, pushed up his glasses, and loudly asked, Are you Chu Than? Is it true that you are flirting with Tang Xian? He sneered, spitting with contempt. Look at you, thinking you're so handsome. Have you heard of Li Yue? That's me, he said arrogantly while putting his hands on his hips. Chu Qing looked at Li Yue with a bored expression, thinking only one thing. Is this guy stupid? Li Yue suddenly got angry, shouted loudly, and rushed forward to deliver a ridiculous strike to Chu Qing's head. In an instant, Chu Qing was as fast as lightning, firmly grabbing Li Yue's wrist, stopping the attack. Li Yue screamed in pain from his twisted arm, while Chu Qing maintained a calm yet strong expression. Panicked, Li Yue shouted for the two bodyguards accompanying him to come and assist, as he was completely suppressed. Chu Qing grabbed Li Yue's hair and slammed his head hard onto the ground, leaving him no time to resist. Blood splattered from the violent impact. While holding Li Yue tightly, Chu Qing delivered a spinning kick to one of the two rushing bodyguards, sending the opponent flying backward. Not stopping, Chu Qing continued to slam Li Yue's head onto the ground again. His glasses fell off, blood flowed out, and he groaned in pain. Chu Qing pressed Li Yue's head down onto the tiled floor, his gaze cold. "If you want to confront me, next time bring more people." Despite being defeated, Li Yue still shouted, "The Li family will not forgive you. Don't think Tang Zian belongs to you. She will marry me. It's already decided between the two families." Chu Qing punched Li Yue's head hard onto the ground, coldly judging. "You yell too much, it's really annoying." Li Yue no longer had the strength to resist, only weakly clapping his hands to beg for mercy. After the fight, Chu Qing stood in front of the purple car, pondering the engagement between the Tang and Li families, suspecting that Li Yue was the fool aunt he had mentioned. Thinking of Chengxi's words, Chu Qing decided to directly ask her to clarify everything. Without hesitation, he texted Chengxi, "I need a private detective to investigate someone. Do you know anyone?" After texting to inquire about investigation information, Chu Qing was surprised to receive a transfer from Yi Chengxi along with the message, "Keep the money," making him wonder why she gave him money. Chu Qing sighed with an indifferent expression, realizing Yi Chengxi thought he was dirt poor. Despite the misunderstanding, he decided to keep the money to buy information. He immediately called the phone number just sent. His awkward tone made the calls beginning not very smooth. On the other end, a girl named Hua misunderstood the purpose of the call. She laughed, thinking Chu Qing wanted a date with an impure motive. Under the crescent moon in the quiet night sky, the tall building stood silently, signaling a night full of changes to come. Chu Qing entered a lively bar, where sparkling lights blended with music and elegant guests chatting animatedly. Sitting alone at the bar, Chu Qing sipped a cocktail and thought about the mysterious woman who took the call, but demanded nothing in exchange for information. A gentle hand was placed on Chu Qing's shoulder from behind, making him turn around in surprise. In front of Chu Qing was a petite girl with pink hair tied in two pigtails, wearing a hoodie and a pleated skirt. It was Chen Huahua, 23 years old, the person he was looking for. Chen Huahua leaned close to Chu Qing with a mischievous look and asked directly, "What information do you want to find out?" Chu Qing was stunned and asked if she was really Chen Huahua while doubting in his mind, "Is this girl a broker? She doesn't even look old enough." Chen Huahua confirmed her identity and called herself Huer. Chu Qing quickly questioned her about her relationship with Deep Then High. Without hesitation, Chen Huahua burst out laughing and teased, "If she's not your girlfriend, then be my boyfriend." The words made Chu Qing choke on his drink, coughing violently, spilling the glass across the bar counter. The male lead seriously mentioned the purpose of their meeting. He wanted to buy information about Tang Zian's family. Chen Huahua suddenly asked teasingly, assuming Zian was his girlfriend, which he immediately denied. The male lead began to suspect, wondering why Chen Huahua knew so much about him. Could it be that she had investigated him beforehand? Chen Huahua didn't answer but continued joking, pinching his cheek and asking directly if she could pursue him. Faced with Huahua's teasing attitude, the young man seriously warned her not to take this lightly if she didn't want to be replaced. Huahua pouted annoyedly, thinking he was too serious and couldn't take a joke. Although displeased, Huahua still opened the data. She revealed that the Tang family was a major power, owning the main company headquarters and most large corporations in the city. She continued to say that the Tang family was facing financial difficulties due to supply chain problems, and it was the Li family who proactively proposed a marriage alliance to help. The plan was to marry Tang Zian, the Tang family's young lady, to Li Yue, in exchange for support from the Li family, thereby rescuing the financial crisis. Hearing this, the young man fell silent. In his previous life, Tang Zian had never mentioned this. Perhaps she didn't want him to feel pressured because of her. Hua asked if he had enough information. The young man didn't answer immediately but just said, as if something was still on his mind. He seriously asked further about alchemy, wanting to know more information related to families involved in this field. Hua quickly confirmed that the Tang family was indeed one of the alchemist families, specializing in pill refining and medicine. He was extremely surprised, realizing that in this world there were also alchemist families, just like in the memories of his previous life. He asked Hua to provide all detailed information, showing his seriousness about the topic he was pursuing. Hua smiled mischievously, agreeing to share the information but set a rather ambiguous condition with sparkling, passionate eyes. At Hua's bold words, he blushed and laughed, stepping back and hurriedly begging for mercy, causing both of them to burst into hearty laughter. Chen Hua began explaining the alchemy technique, dividing it into two main types. The first type is common alchemy, which relies on strong internal power to create elixirs, also the specialty of the Tang family. She continued to talk about the second type, spiritual alchemy, which uses a mysterious and hard-to-explain form of power. This type was beyond her understanding. Hearing spiritual power, the male protagonist was startled. He silently wondered if anyone else in this world possessed a power like his. Chen Hua suddenly stood up and declared that the total value of the two pieces of information just revealed was 100,000 yuan. But because the male protagonist was handsome, she was willing to offer a 20% discount. The male protagonist continued to ask, besides the information just shared, did Hua know anything about secret transactions related to medicinal ingredients? Chen Hua set a condition for exchanging information. As long as the male character went to dinner with her, she would reveal it. The night sky was quiet and full of stars, signaling that the scene had shifted to a new location, a roadside eatery. Chen Hua led the young man to a roadside grill stall, walking cheerfully while he followed cautiously behind. A friendly waiter immediately recognized Chen Hua and warmly asked what she wanted to eat as usual. Without hesitation, Chen Hua ordered 20 skewers of pork and 4 bottles of cold beer, making the young man feel a bit embarrassed by her enthusiasm. A letter 1E7Y was surprised by the culinary preferences of this world when he saw the little girl ordering so energetically. He thought to himself, women in this world are crazy about grilled skewers. When he turned around, a letter 1E7Y was amazed to see a group of women behind also drinking, ordering more skewers, and drinking like veteran fujoshi. He held his head in frustration, suddenly remembering that this world was completely opposite to where he had lived before, making his mood even more confused. The night sky glittered with stars, as if witnessing a strange world that he had not yet fully adapted to. Chen Hua suddenly burst into tears, telling about the boy she liked who rejected her just because he thought she was poor. A letter 1E7Y was stunned, not knowing how to react to this sudden emotional release. Hua blushed and sat close to the boy, her heart pounding after crying hard. She did not realize that the distance between them was gradually disappearing. Her short dress gently swayed with the slight movement of her legs, her hands still clutching the boy's sleeve as if wanting to hold on to a fragile sense of safety. Hua sobbed loudly, shouting that she only had a small house, liked buying games, and her chest was flat. She desperately asked if she could get married. He simply replied, no. Hua still held onto the boy's sleeve, unwilling to let go. The fragility in that action made the scene even more stirring. With teary eyes, Hua softly asked, so, does that mean you like me? Her gaze was full of hope and expectation. After the lively dinner, the male protagonist carried the little girl who was drunk on his back, slowly climbing the stairs at night. He sighed and told her not to drink too much if she couldn't handle it. The door opened, revealing her apartment with a messy scene. Bottles, trash, and even insects crawling on the floor, making the atmosphere heavy. The male protagonist looked around the spiderweb-covered and cluttered house, thinking silently that this girl really couldn't take care of herself. No wonder she insisted on having a husband. He gently laid her on the bed. Her face was still flushed from the alcohol, her messy hair spread over the white pillow. As he stood up, her small hands suddenly reached out, pulling him back while her eyes were half closed, unconsciously calling him with a tender gesture. In that unexpected moment, she climbed onto the male protagonist, her dreamy eyes looking straight into his. The atmosphere suddenly became silent, tense, and ambiguous. Huahua looked at the young man with teary eyes, earnestly begging him to stay by her side tonight. Upon hearing his agreement, Huahua smiled brightly with satisfaction, clearly showing signs of drunkenness and joy. But in just a moment, that emotion turned into fatigue, and she began to drift off from exhaustion. She leaned into his chest, sleeping soundly like a child. The young man silently lay still, his eyes full of complexity. Waiting for Huahua to fall into a deep sleep, he gently took out his phone, seemingly preparing to handle something important. A few days later, a peaceful scene appeared under the clear blue sky. A new phase was beginning. The male lead read a warning news. The Tang family, famous for their pill-refining techniques, was in crisis due to an intruder. When opening the secret document, he discovered that the Ten Towns auction house, run by an ancient martial arts family, possessed countless precious spirit pills. The male lead told himself that he could not survive in this world without money. Fortunately, he knew what was valuable enough to exchange for survival. On the rooftop, he began meditating with the secret manual in hand, a brilliant spiritual energy flaring around him, a determination preparing for the next big step. Chu Qing explained that in the cultivation world, there exists a type of stone called spirit stone, capable of accelerating cultivation and supporting traditional martial arts. He said spirit stones can be mined from mineral veins or cultivated eternally, absorbing spiritual energy from heaven and earth. The sun set, the scene shifted to a modern villa, signaling a new plot unfolding there. Chu Qing appeared behind a woman emitting strong energy, indicating she had just completed a breakthrough in cultivation. The woman sincerely thanked Chu Qing and promised to help him anytime if he encountered difficulties. Chu Qing realized this world had no spirit stones, so he decided to take the first one to auction to start making money. With the ability to create spirit stones, Chu Qing believed that from now on money would no longer be a problem. He smiled confidently, feeling that everything was gradually going in the right direction. When night fell, he strolled leisurely, recalling the detoxification of Aunt Yi Qingmei and preparing to enter a new cultivation phase. Yi Qingmei finally sensed the familiar aura again. Her body began to fill with the power that had been sealed away. Chu Qing heard an unexpected call from behind, turning around with a serious expression. A long-haired girl in a red dress suddenly hugged him tightly, pressing her face close in the romantic sunset scene. Without giving him time to react, she took the initiative to place a kiss on his lips, causing Chu Qing's eyes to widen in surprise. A servant ran over with urgent news, breaking their private moment. The girl waved goodbye, leaving with a bright smile and a cryptic promise about a complete gift in the future. Chu Qing was stunned, scratching the back of his head, thinking to himself, being kissed by a girl like that isn't so bad after all. Suddenly, he shouted with determination, a strong aura bursting around his body. The feeling from that kiss still vividly imprinted in his mind. Their lips had only just parted. The girl smiled mischievously, pressing her finger to his lips and whispering, "Thank you for healing my mother. That's a small gift from me." In Chu Qing's hand, a golden sword appeared, radiating dazzling light as if responding to his surging emotions. Chu Qing cultivated his body, glowing along with ancient runes as the power of his spiritual body began to revive. A blazing golden sword manifested in his hand, serving as a conduit for summoning hidden power. Flames surrounding his body rose fiercely. Chu Qing shouted joyfully as he felt his spiritual body fully restored. Returning to normal state, Chu Qing began meditating, regulating the newly revived energy from his spiritual body in the quiet space. A powerful spiritual energy radiated from his hands, gathering into a beam of light piercing through the ceiling, showing that his energy had surpassed previous limits. He firmly grasped the spiritual sword, merging it with himself like a new part of his body recreated from fire and runes. In the brilliant burst, Chu Qing bid farewell to his former weak body. The perfect spiritual body officially appeared, ready to enter a new realm. In the quiet midnight, a purple-haired girl opened the door, frowning because she was awakened by loud noise coming from the next room. Inside, Chu Ching startled and turned around, sweat dripping as he realized the sword was glowing strangely on his body. He hurriedly hid the sword behind his back as the girl suddenly stepped in and saw the whole scene. Chu Ching tried to stay calm in the awkward situation, standing almost naked with a confused face and hands tightly holding the sword hidden in his underwear. The girl sighed softly, said nothing, slammed the door hard, leaving Chu Ching standing there with a mix of relief and embarrassment. A short-haired girl suddenly opened the door in an annoyed state, shouting because the noise kept her from sleeping. Chu Ching startled and turned around, his face showing clear worry as he realized the sword was exposed behind him. The girl stood frozen at the sight of Chu Ching, tightly gripping the sword hilt hidden behind his back while he was only wearing underwear. In the awkward atmosphere, Chu Ching stood embarrassed, covering his lower body, causing the girl to misunderstand his actions even more. The door slammed shut after the shout shut, leaving an embarrassing silence for both. The city lights up busily. Chu Than heads to a special place, the Shizhen auction house. He quietly opened the door and stepped in, his eyes radiating confidence and determination. Inside, a silver-haired man was surprised to see a visitor arriving so late. He bluntly refused. "We're closed, come back tomorrow." Chu Than said nothing, silently presenting a brightly glowing spirit stone in his hand. The silver-haired man widened his eyes in astonishment upon seeing the glowing golden stone in Chu Ching's hand. His eyes opened wide, gaze sharpening as he realized the item before him was extraordinary. He suddenly stood up, slammed his hand on the table hard enough to startle Chu Ching. After a moment of confusion, he stepped in front of Chu Ching, extended his hand calmly and asked, "May I see it?" Chu Ching said nothing, just handed over the stone, letting the brilliant golden light shine in the man's hand. Jia Yu was surprised to feel the abundant spiritual energy from the radiant golden stone, realizing it was a rare treasure that could greatly enhance cultivation ability. After a moment of shock, Jia Yu's expression suddenly changed, becoming serious and full of calculation. Jia Yu extended his hand, introduced himself as the heir of the Shizhen auction house, subtly showing serious interest in the item. Chu Ching also introduced himself, then shook hands with Jia Yu, marking an official cooperation between them. Jia Yu asked clearly for the name and quantity of the stones. Chu Ching replied they were spirit stones, and he owned 5 of them, which surprised Jia Yu even more. Jia Yu offered to buy all the spirit stones at 200,000 yuan each, totaling 1 million yuan for 5 stones. Night fell, and the space outside the auction floor was silent. Chu Ching stepped outside, feeling fully satisfied. The selling price exceeded expectations, and he was nurturing plans to monopolize the market. His phone vibrated, a message from Hua Hua appeared. "Let's go drinking tonight." Chu Ching looked at the message, his face showing surprise mixed with embarrassment, stopping in the quiet alley. Suddenly sensing danger, Chu Ching's eyes turned sharp as he looked behind. A stranger in a black cloak suddenly rushed forward, his figure filled with murderous intent. He drew a knife and stabbed fiercely at Chu Ching with lightning speed. Chu Ching reacted in time. The pendant on his chest glowed, activating the sword formation. A fierce explosion occurred. The light from the magic formation enveloped the space, instantly knocking away the attacker. Chu Ching immediately realized another stranger was approaching. His eyes became vigilant. A black-clad figure suddenly appeared from above, launching a surprise attack. The assassin swung his knife forward, intending to kill Chu Ching in an instant. However, Chu Ching's pendant glowed again, casting the sword formation, magic formation to block the attack. A burst of energy exploded, knocking the enemy away and creating a brilliant fire formation around Chu Ching. Chu Ching stepped closer step by step, his cold gaze fixed on the injured man kneeling in despair. He raised the glowing sword, pressing it close to the trembling assassin in hopelessness. With a sharp look, Chu Ching asked directly, "Who sent you?" The assassin panicked and confessed, "It was Li Yaowei. He said you were a weak student and hired us. Please don't kill me." Chu Ching gave a faint smile full of contempt, then without hesitation swung the sword to finish off the attacker. Chu Qing coldly looked at the dying assassin and spoke harshly. "Rest assured, your boss will come pick up your body later." The assassin could only scream in despair. Turning away, Chu Qing gritted his teeth and vowed, "The Li family, I will end you with my own hands, just wait." Suddenly his heartbeat raced unusually fast, a strange sensation rising from his chest. Chu Qing clutched his chest, his face pale, his body trembled violently. "What is happening to my body?" Chu Than felt his body burning hot, the newly awakened power putting heavy pressure on his still incomplete body. His vision began to blur, a clear sign of exhaustion. Under the night sky, Chu Than staggered into a familiar place, trying to lean against the wall to keep his balance, sweat pouring continuously. He realized he had unconsciously sought out a dangerous spot. The unusual sensation in his body began to spiral out of control, leading to an unwanted state of excitement. A pink-haired girl opened the door, surprised to see Chu Than standing right in front of her, breathing heavily and with a dazed look in his eyes. Chu Than faced the girl with a serious expression, sweat dripping from his forehead, speechless. Their eyes met, creating an awkward yet tense atmosphere. Unable to suppress the rising emotions, the male lead suddenly rushed forward and embraced the pink-haired girl tightly in his arms. Caught off guard by the sudden hug, the girl looked up anxiously, her face flushing red. "Hey, what's going on?" The male lead did not answer, but gently pulled her closer, giving her a sudden, deep, and passionate kiss. The door slammed shut behind them. A small escaped from the girl's lips as she couldn't react quickly enough to the rapid development. Amid the sparkling pink light, they both fell down. The male lead continued kissing the girl in his arms, as if instinct completely overtook reason. Unable to resist the urge within his body, the young man hugged the girl tightly, as if she were the only support amid the raging storm of desire. The girl lifted her head, eyes confused and worried, softly asking, "Hey, what's happening?" The young man did not respond. He bowed his head and placed a fierce kiss on her lips, carrying heavy breaths and loss of control. Into each other in a private moment. The curtain fell. In the hazy space, their kiss continued, burning and full of emotion, as if breaking all boundaries between reason and instinct. Water reflections shimmered throughout the simple room, where a makeshift mattress lay neatly in the corner. On that mattress, the young man and the pink-haired girl lay side by side, their bodies entwined under a thin blanket, their breaths merging as one. The girl whispered softly in her sleep, eyes tightly shut, "I don't want to be too attached to this world, but I can't bear the loneliness." The young man lifted his head, eyes blazing while burning bright. "The only thing to do is to conquer this world." A clear morning, sunlight flooding over the peaceful school campus. In the classroom, Chu Qing was resting his head on the desk, asleep after a night of turmoil. A purple-haired female student entered and called out, "Is Chu Qing here?" The whole class buzzed as they recognized her as Tang Jian. Chu Qing startled awake, his eyes wary and full of suspicion directed toward the classroom door. Tang Jian approached, looked straight into his eyes and invited, "Stop sleeping, come have lunch with me." Chu Qing was shocked and stood up abruptly, silently doubting, "Are women in this world really this straightforward?" Tang Jian suddenly froze, as if she had just noticed something strange. She stepped closer, eyes sharp, bent down to look at Chu Qing and questioned, "Why do you smell like another woman?" Chu Qing was stunned when Tang Jian stared at him after the unexpected question. Both fell into an awkward, speechless atmosphere. Tang Jian turned away, maintaining a calm expression. She gently suggested again, "Forget it, do you want to have lunch with me?" Chu Qing awkwardly scratched his head, trying to force a smile. Okay." Breathing a sigh of relief, Chu Qing thought to himself, "Luckily, she didn't notice. If she knew I spent the night at another girl's house, it would be a big problem." In the hallway, the male students were buzzing with chatter. One exclaimed in surprise, "Am I dreaming? The Academy goddess invited Chu Qing to lunch?" Another replied, "You don't know how they met. The school forum is buzzing with videos." Walking beside Tang Jian, Chu Qing curiously and suspiciously asked why she suddenly invited him to lunch. Tang Jian slightly turned her face, hesitatingly saying she just wanted to have lunch with him, with no strings attached. After a few seconds of silence, Tang Jian suddenly asked with a gentle gaze, "Can I hold your hand?" Chu Qing thought to himself, this girl just said no strings attached, yet she calmly lied without any shame. While he was still thinking, Tang Jian gently took his hand without hesitation. Tang Jian was surprised when Chu Qing took the initiative to hold her hand, her cheeks blushing from the surprise. Chu Qing lightly pinched Tang Jian's nose, making the atmosphere between them even stranger. He stared at her, his eyes shining with confusion and embarrassment. Under the sunny tree canopy, the two stood holding hands, their eyes meeting full of emotion. Tang Jian smiled shyly. Immediately after, she quickly stepped back, her cheeks flushed red, avoiding Chu Qing's gaze while her heart raced. Tang Jian blushed angrily and shouted when Chu Qing pinched her nose, but he only responded with a mischievous smile. Chu Qing turned and walked away, a gentle smile on his lips, while Tang Jian stood silently watching him leave. In Tang Jian's heart, she thought to herself that she grew up in a controlled environment and had never met anyone like Chu Qing. Since their first meeting, she always felt he was special, bringing a sense of safety and warmth. Covering her face with her hands, she wondered, why have I become the kind of girl who relies on a boy like this? The sky was clear, and the peaceful scenery led to a small restaurant with a Chinese style. Chu Qing confidently ordered 2 bowls of spicy noodles, one special without coriander but with added vinegar and chili, exactly Tang Jian's taste. Jian was surprised to realize he knew her taste well, and suspicion arose in her mind. Had he investigated her? Chu Qing casually asked back, while Jian blushed awkwardly, trying to hide the emotions rising inside her. As they sat close together in the restaurant, a pair of unfamiliar female students suddenly approached, making the atmosphere tense. Chu Qing stared coldly and warily at the 2 strange girls who had just entered. The 2 strange girls walked past the table, dressed simply but carrying swords on their backs, heightening the tension. A loudspeaker called table number 3 to pick up their order, breaking the silence that had settled. Chu Qing stood up and left the table, passing by the 2 girls whose eyes silently followed him without blinking. The girl with braided hair nodded slightly to her teammate, a clear signal for an imminent action. The 2 suspicious strangers stood up from their seats. One secretly drew a knife, eyes full of murderous intent. Suddenly, one of them raised the knife high and lunged straight at the purple-haired girl, who stood still, unprepared. At that moment, a bowl of noodles flew at terrifying speed, splashing hot soup in midair. The bowl hit the attacker's head directly, splattering water and flour all over her face, causing her to scream in pain. She clutched her head and retreated desperately, while the other also drew a knife and charged forward, but the situation had completely changed. Another thug suddenly rushed forward, raising a sharp knife to stab the purple-haired girl while she was still sitting, unable to react in time. A brilliant golden light surrounded them, creating a sense of imminent danger. A TH letter 1E7Y was unexpectedly invited to lunch by the purple-haired girl. As he walked, he asked the reason for this sudden invitation. The girl awkwardly replied, saying she simply wanted to eat with him with no other intentions. After a moment of silence, the girl looked up at a TH letter 1E7Y and quietly asked, "Can I hold your hand?" A TH letter 1E7Y thought to himself that she had said there were no strings attached, yet now it was like this, and she remained calm without any embarrassment. Though confused, a TH letter 1E7Y still reached out and held her hand without saying anything further. The woman with braided hair angrily kicked, knocking away her accomplice who had just failed to attack Chu Qing. The purple-haired girl anxiously told Chu Qing to leave because she was the real target and did not want him to get involved. Chu Qing turned back, his eyes firm, loudly declaring, "How could I abandon my girl?" With blazing momentum, Chu Qing charged straight at the enemy, determined to protect the girl to the end. The woman delivered a fierce kick toward Chu Qing, marking the start of a brutal battle between the 2 sides. Chu Qing rushed forward like a whirlwind, ignoring the wound still bleeding on his abdomen. With explosive strength, he threw a powerful punch that sent his opponent flying and shattered the surrounding tables and chairs. Not stopping there, the other enemy leapt down from above with a surprise attack, preparing to deliver a fatal blow. The enemy unleashed a full-force strike aimed directly at Chu Qing's chest. But in an instant, Chu Qing countered strongly, sending his opponent flying backward, crashing hard to the ground with blood splattering everywhere. Chu Qing silently turned away, his back solemn but hiding an unusual confidence. A smirk appeared on his lips, and Chu Qing's eyes flashed with killing intent. He was ready to end everything. In the thick smoke, the two attackers lay collapsed on the blood-soaked tiles. Chu Qing and the purple-haired girl stood silently, one injured, the other stunned. The girl looked at Chu Qing in surprise and asked urgently, "Are you from the ancient martial arts clan?" Chu Qing smiled calmly. "No, it's a bit complicated. Just think of me as a free warrior." Chu Qing held the purple-haired girl's hand and left the restaurant. He said it was no longer safe there and asked her to call her family to deal with the two attackers. Outside, the scene appeared peaceful, with a clear blue sky and sunlight shining down on the street, completely contrasting with the chaos that had just occurred. The girl supported Chu Qing as they slowly walked along a wall covered with vines. He held his wounded abdomen, struggling with each step. Blood seeped from Chu Qing's wound, soaking through his inner shirt. His hand clenched tightly on the pain to keep himself from collapsing. The girl looked at him worriedly and asked if she should take him to the hospital. Her eyes showed clear anxiety and sincere concern. Chu Qing smiled reassuringly, affirming to her that the wound was not serious and would heal on its own. However, inside he remained cautious, realizing he needed to create magical weapons to enhance his defense, since even two ordinary assassins could injure him. On the way out, the girl asked Chu Qing if he knew much about her clan, her eyes full of suspicion and curiosity. She continued asking if Li Wei had caused any trouble for Chu Qing, worry clearly visible on her face. Chu Qing confidently replied, asserting that someone like him could not be troubled by a few lackeys, his smile bright and proud. The girl stood silently, her gaze somewhat shy and embarrassed as she looked at Chu Qing. Chu Qing scratched his head and smiled awkwardly, thinking to himself that he couldn't tell her the truth that she had been his wife in a past life. He seriously confessed that he felt a deep familiarity strong enough to be willing to sacrifice himself for her. The two walked side by side, their steps slow but full of meaning after the battle. Suddenly the girl asked with a serious look, "Why did you save me?" seeking an answer from Chu Qing's heart. Iller blushed and turned away, unable to hide her embarrassment after Chu Qing's sincere words. Chu Qing seriously affirmed that even if she suspected he had ulterior motives, he still wanted to help because he knew Iller's clan was in trouble. Iller began to explain that the Tang clan was famous for producing pharmaceuticals and owned dozens of factories. But a month ago, a secret formula was stolen, causing pressure from other pharmaceutical clans. She suspected the Li clan was behind everything, plotting to force her into marriage to seize all the Tang family assets. Chu Qing was angry, realizing the Li clan not only wanted to destroy the Yip family, but also swallow the Tang family, an act that provoked his wrath. Chu Qing gripped Tang's shoulder firmly, his eyes resolute. He assured her he could solve all her problems and hoped to earn her trust. Tang looked up in astonishment, unable to believe her ears. She asked again, "You really can?" Chu Qing smiled gently and replied that the solution was simple. Tang's clan just needed to create a new medicine formula. Tang shook her head with a sigh. She explained that it wasn't easy since more than 10 of their research centers had taken 20 years to develop just over 10 formulas. Seeing her worry, Chu Qing decided to put the matter aside for now. He reassured Tang calmly that he would handle it at a more appropriate time. Chu Qing seriously placed his hand on Tang's shoulder and promised, if he said he could solve all the problems, would she believe him? Tang was stunned, tilting her head with suspicion and asking again, "You can?" Chu Qing smiled confidently and gently said that as long as the Tang family developed a new pharmaceutical formula, it would be enough. Tang slowly shook her head, explaining that it wasn't easy. Over 10 research centers had spent 20 years creating just a dozen formulas. Chu Qing didn't push further, only telling her to put it aside for now, his eyes calm as if he already had another plan in mind. Chu Qing turned around and left, instructing the purple-haired girl to inform Lang Dong that he couldn't return to class due to an urgent matter. The girl called out his name in surprise. As Chu Ching stepped outside, he called Hua Hua, requesting to immediately locate Deep Than Hai's phone because he sensed something was wrong. Hua Hua, a pink-haired girl working in front of a computer screen, immediately received the order and quickly began tracking. A mysterious person was holding a phone, the screen showing a call to Jia Yu. Chu Ching stood in the middle of the street holding his phone, seriously saying into it, "Jia Yu, it's me, Chu Ching." Things were becoming urgent. A silver-haired man stood behind the counter, happily welcoming two guests entering, asking if they had brought any new treasures for him. Chu Ching held the phone calmly, slightly smiling as he replied that he only wanted to request a ride and had no treasure. The silver-haired man immediately agreed, asking Chu Ching where he wanted to be picked up to prepare accordingly. Chu Ching hung up after the short call, preparing everything for the journey ahead. The silver-haired man turned back to inform the auction attendees that due to an emergency, today's auction would end here. A white sports car sped down the road, leaving a trail of smoke behind, showing urgency and haste. Inside the car, Chu Ching sat in the passenger seat, eyes glued to his phone. The driver was Jia Yu with a serious expression, both speeding through the streets. Hua Hua sent Yi Chengxi's location via phone. On the screen, the location marker kept moving, proving Yi Chengxi was being taken away. Chu Ching raised his phone toward Jia Yu, ordering, "Follow this trace." His face was full of worry mixed with anger. Jia Yu smiled confidently, gripping the steering wheel tightly, briefly saying, "Hold on tight," ready for a high-speed chase. The white supercar shot forward like an arrow, weaving past other vehicles on the road at a terrifying speed. Chu Ching and the silver-haired friend sat in the car, eyes focused, full of fighting spirit as they chased the target. On the phone screen, Yi Chengxi's location was still moving. This made Chu Ching even more urgent. He held the phone out in front of his friend and decisively ordered, "Follow this target's trace." The silver-haired friend smirked, gripping the steering wheel tightly, replying briefly, "Hold on tight." Chu Ching pointed forward, decisively ordering, "That car, stop it at all costs." The silver-haired man smiled confidently, his sharp eyes ready for an intense chase. The supercar roared as it accelerated, rushing forward like a white arrow tearing through the road's surface. The white car sped through the lane, zooming past a truck trying to escape, leaving a thick cloud of smoke behind. A violent collision occurred. The truck lost control and crashed straight into the roadside, its wheels spinning wildly amid flying debris. Chu Ching stepped out of the car, coldly looking at the truck that had crashed into a tree, black smoke billowing from the wreckage. Two kidnappers staggered out of the car through the smoke, coughing harshly while trying to find a place to hide. Amidst the hazy scene, Chu Ching silently advanced, the blazing light from the spiritual sword in his hand spreading everywhere as a sign of impending wrath. Sensing the situation was bad, the two kidnappers immediately drew their guns, shouting alarms in desperation. In an instant, the sword light flashed. Both were defeated, blood splattering as Chu Ching stood firm in the middle of the road, his eyes full of killing intent. The two criminals fired continuously at Chu Ching, muzzle flashes brightening in the smoky haze. But before they could rejoice, both were immediately struck by golden lightning bolts, their bodies thrown backward by the terrible recoil. Chu Ching descended from above like a descending angel, holding a blazing sword, his presence overwhelming. Steady footsteps echoed. Chu Ching coldly approached the truck where the enemies had just been defeated. Without hesitation, he opened the back door of the truck through the thick smoke, his determined eyes ready to face the truth inside. The youth's eyes blazed brightly as he suddenly discovered a dazzling light emanating from inside the truck. A giant pillar of fire accompanied by thunder exploded, engulfing the entire truck and creating a fierce blast. The youth quickly jumped back, dodging the explosion as flames erupted behind him. Through the smoky haze and blazing light, a pair of slender legs appeared, approaching the battlefield. Two strangers dressed in traditional Chinese robes stepped out of the flames, surrounded by a strange and majestic aura. The youth frowned in thought, Ordinary people cannot possess such power. Could it be that this world also has cultivators? A spark of doubt flashed in his mind. A man in purple robes with a dignified appearance smiled, praising the young man in front of him for his outstanding ability despite his youth. He proactively invited the young man to join the Quan Chan sect. The young man responded with a confident smile, affirming that he had heard of the Quan Chan sect, but was certain they could not have trained two failures like his opponents. The man in green robes became angry at the insult, shouting back. He turned to call his fellow disciple senior brother, suggesting they immediately kill the talkative young man. Unfazed, the young man sarcastically retorted that with such low skill levels, the two of them should have stayed to train for a few more years instead of going out and making a laughingstock of themselves. Both monks became furious. The man in green clenched his fist tightly, while the man in purple's face darkened, his aura beginning to fluctuate. The young monk tightened his grip on his weapon, spiritual power, flaring fiercely like flames burning around his body. He charged forward, shouting a challenge on behalf of his senior brother, swinging his spear and creating dazzling golden sparks of fire. The young man remained calm, gripping the blazing sword tightly in his hand, ready to confront the attack. The two sides clashed head-on, light and energy exploding like thunder in the sky. The monk lunged forward, unleashing a series of continuous strikes, powerful blows tearing through the air on the street. Athai's powerful attack caused the glowing staff to start cracking, emitting a sharp crack sound. The monk panicked upon seeing his weapon destroyed, shouting loudly, "My salamander rod, how dare you destroy my weapon?" Athai leapt high into the air, his momentum compressed like a thunderbolt descending. In the blinding light, Athai struck down powerfully with his sword, roaring, "So what if I do?" The blazing sword crushed the staff. Under overwhelming power, the staff exploded, completely shattered by Athai's superior strength. The fiery staff in the disciple's hand began to crack, light flaring fiercely as the clashing power exceeded its limit. He angrily shouted, unable to believe that his beloved weapon, the salamander rod, was destroyed so easily. While he was still enraged, the young man in white lunged from above, exuding power and decisiveness. Swinging his sword straight down, the young man coldly replied, "So what if I break it?" The slash tore apart the remaining resistance. Blinding light from the downward slash. Blood splattered, the opponent staggered amid a terrifying storm of energy. The young man's strike shattered both ends of the opponent's staff, which fell to the ground in shock. The disciple angrily roared, calling him a brat, as blood dripped from his wound onto the ground. In a rage, he charged forward with a fist blazing with fire, vowing to destroy the one who humiliated him. Seeing his fellow disciple injured, the man in purple performed a spell, gathering heavenly energy and appearing within a Tai Kai energy vortex. His palm technique exploded, creating a massive blast, dazzling light covering the entire sky. In the thick smoke after the explosion, blood dripped from the legs of a defeated opponent. The young man, face cold, tightly gripped the dying opponent's neck in his hand, eyes as cold as death. The older brother behind shouted desperately, "Brother!" eyes red and full of rage. The young man sneered softly, throwing the body aside. "If you cultivate, then don't commit crimes in the mortal world." He stepped forward, eyes full of killing intent, questioning, "Is this what you noble monks are taught?" With a fierce face, the man in purple shouted angrily, his whole body radiating a wild purple aura, "Today I will kill you." He soared into the sky like a thunderbolt striking earth, momentum surging amid clouds and lightning. Just as he was about to strike, a figure suddenly appeared amid the lightning, causing him to panic. A scream echoed through the sky as the sword pierced his shoulder, blood splattering, staining the night red. He trembled, turning his head, his face pale and full of pain and hatred, uttering only one word, "You." In his dying moments, the man in purple shouted one last time, blood gushing out, his body falling freely through the air. He only managed to say brokenly, "She will." After the horrific battle, a devastated scene appeared with smoldering flames still burning. A young man in white approached the dark-colored car ahead, where an important person was being held captive. Inside the car, a girl wearing a red shirt lay unconscious. It seemed she had been locked there throughout the recent chaos. The young man gently stroked her cheek, trying to wake her. "Hey, wake up!" The girl stirred slightly, her eyes still tightly shut, whispering weakly. The girl opened her eyes wide in shock, looking at Chu Qing with a rapid breath as if just escaping a nightmare. She immediately grabbed Chu Qing's hand, worriedly saying, "Chu Qing, why are you here? We have to leave immediately. There are 2 senior Taoist priests, even I can't reach them." Chu Qing gently pulled the girl's head to rest on his shoulder, soothing the lingering panic after the battle. He whispered reassuringly, "Don't be afraid anymore, everything is fine," while holding her tightly in his arms. They both looked outside, where the 2 defeated monks lay motionless among the debris on the road. Amid the devastation, the 2 silently embraced in the car cabin, seeking a moment of peace after the storm. Chu Qing looked straight at her, asking seriously, "Do you know who kidnapped you?" The girl seriously said she had a hunch that the Li family was behind the kidnapping. The relationship between the 2 sides had long been tense, and every time they fought, her side had to retreat because the enemy had powerful masters supporting them. Upon hearing this, Chu Qing immediately understood the issue. He suspected the Li family had secretly cooperated with Taoist cultivators deep in the mountains. The girl emphasized that those masters were very unusual, their power far beyond ordinary people, and their attacks completely unpredictable. She awkwardly said she did not mean to belittle men. Chu Qing smiled and replied that he understood. He assessed that the current situation of the Yi family was truly critical. The girl angrily added that not only the big families, but also smaller clans had started causing trouble, making things even more chaotic. Chu Qing reasoned that recent actions might be related to the upcoming auction, rumored to feature many rare treasures. The girl nodded, confirming this was the opposition's way to deliberately disrupt information to prevent other families from preparing. Overexcited by this important discovery, she suddenly kissed Chu Qing on the cheek and called him her lucky star. She invited Chu Qing to her home to tell her mother about the matter and to thank him on behalf of her family. Chu Qing smiled, gently stroking her head as a tender gesture of comfort. Chu Qing gave a light smile and calmly nodded in response. "Let's go." Under the quiet moonlight, the 2 arrived in front of the Yi family mansion, where lights remained on throughout the night. In the living room, 3 elderly women with a special aura were waiting, the atmosphere somewhat serious. Chu Qing and the girl in red entered, both maintaining solemn expressions as they faced those seated opposite. A woman with a kind smile spoke up to welcome them. "Chu Qing, come in and sit down." A blonde woman suddenly shouted loudly, ordering a stop, instantly making the meeting room atmosphere tense. The purple-haired woman leaned toward her with a stern look, softly calling her eldest sister, as if trying to stop her before things went too far. The eldest sister angrily stood up, harshly criticizing that allowing an outsider to join the family's secret meeting was unacceptable behavior. She continued, pointing directly at Chu Qing with contempt in her voice. "Moreover, he is a man," emphasizing the greatest taboo here. Chu Qing remained silent, his gaze deepening, saying nothing in the face of the surrounding discrimination. Facing fierce opposition, Chu Qing calmly stepped forward, smiling confidently and clearly stating, "I did not come here to join your secret meeting." The calmness in his words caused the entire room to pause for a moment. After the fierce explosion, flames blazed throughout the parking lot. A teenager collapsed in the rubble while Chu Qing approached the black truck. Inside the truck bed, a black-haired girl wearing a red shirt was unconscious, her body quietly curled up under the dim light. Chu Qing gently tapped the girl's cheek and softly said, "Hey, wake up." The girl gradually regained consciousness, letting out a faint groan. The girl suddenly woke up, sitting up alertly, her eyes fixed directly on Chu Qing. She immediately grabbed his hand, anxiously shouting, "Chu Qing, why are you here? Leave quickly. There are 2 masters I can't even confront." The blonde woman held a glowing stone in her hand, her eyes suspicious. The woman in black standing beside her frowned, curious about the origin and purpose of the strange stone. The woman in black calmly replied that it was a spirit stone she made herself. She gently took the stone back from the other woman to prove her point. She closed her eyes, placed the spirit stone on her chest, focused her inner strength as she guided herself, and asked others to feel the flow of power from within her body. The light from the spirit stone flared intensely, enveloping the woman in black. She entered a meditative state, her whole body glowing as everyone around watched. A pair of eyes opened wide, highly focused, the light from the spirit stone shining brightly in the pupils. The energy conduction process began. A tremendous energy burst erupted around the woman in black, her body surrounded by blazing purple and golden lightning, screaming in pain while unleashing power. The terrifying scene startled the other three, their eyes filled with horror and shock at the unexpected event. After sensing the astonishing effect, the woman in black immediately changed her attitude, eagerly asking Chu Qing how many spirit stones he had left, expressing interest in buying them all if the price was reasonable. Chu Qing calmly replied that this was not for sale, at least not directly, causing the room to fall into stunned silence. The two women standing nearby were angry, their gazes stern. One loudly questioned whether Chu Qing was joking with them. Chu Qing smiled confidently, raising his hand to explain that there would be an auction in 2 days where the stone's value would be officially determined. He offered a preferential price due to his relationship with Yi Chengxi. Chu Qing continued, stating that his main purpose for coming was to give a type of protective talisman he created, and another type that could temporarily increase combat power. Hearing about the ability to boost combat power, the three women were amazed and immediately asked how much of an increase it provided in percentage. Chu Qing calmly answered that the talisman could increase combat power by up to 30%. Reacting to the surprising figure, the two women quickly asked how much time and cost were needed to make those talismans. Chu Qing explained that making talismans was very simple and only took a few days. Since it was not for profit, he let people set their own prices. However, Chu Qing emphasized that elixirs required longer refining time. The first batch would be prioritized for the Yi family, with prices negotiable later. The blonde woman frowned suspiciously, asking why Chu Qing helped them without demanding any benefits. Chu Qing smiled, gently placing his hand on Yi Chengxi's shoulder, saying he helped simply because she was his friend. Yi Chengxi was moved to speechlessness, her eyes shining with gratitude. Under the moonlight, she and Chu Qing stood silently in the quiet garden. Chengxi softly expressed her feelings, saying she initially teased Chu Qing, but never expected he would gradually become a trustworthy friend who silently helped her and her family. Under the moonlight, Chu Qing looked at Chengxi with deep emotion. In his heart, he thought that his new life in Jinmen was truly interesting and full of promise. Chu Qing planned that after the auction, with media support from the Yi family, he would build his own business empire in Jinmen. Returning home late at night, Chu Qing gently called out to his parents, carrying a relaxed mood after a special evening. Suddenly, something surprised Chu Qing. His eyes suddenly grew serious, signaling a new situation about to unfold. When Chu Than came home, he was shocked to see his parents and a strange woman sitting in the living room with serious expressions. The woman introduced herself as Chu Than Ha, Chu Than's second aunt, leaving him stunned because he had never heard of her before. Chu Than maintained a polite attitude in response, but secretly doubted her true identity. Chu Than Ha smiled slyly, saying that her purpose was to discuss a marriage arrangement that had been prearranged for Chu Than. Chu Than was stunned and exclaimed. He was only 17 years old, not even legally old enough to marry. Chu Than returned home, surprised to see his parents receiving a strange woman with a tense attitude. The woman introduced herself as Chu Than Ha, Chu Than's second aunt, presenting herself with a confident and familiar tone. Chu Than smiled politely in greeting, but inwardly doubted her because he had never heard of any distant relatives since childhood. Chu Than Ha smiled meaningfully, saying she came to discuss a marriage arrangement that had been planned beforehand. Hearing the word marriage, Chu Than was stunned and objected, emphasizing that he was only 17 years old and not yet of legal age to marry. Chu Qing took a drag of his cigarette, then insulted the entire Chu Qing family, mocking them as uneducated like his mother years ago. Chu Qing's father stood up, trying to stay calm, and said he would go make tea to avoid the heavy atmosphere. Chu Qing quietly observed his father with sad eyes, while his father bowed his head, speechless. Anger surged within Chu Qing. He silently fumed, wanting to teach the sharp-tongued woman a lesson. Chu King continued to mock Chu Qing's mother, blaming her for refusing to marry into the Liu family, so now she had to suffer raising a useless child. Chu Kan angrily slammed his fist hard on the table, shaking the entire room. Chu Kan Ha was startled, her face pale with shock. Everyone looked at Chu Kan. He stood silently, but his fist remained clenched, cigarette smoke still lingering in the air. His gaze was cold as ice. Chu Kan calmly said he had just seen a fly on the table and felt extremely uncomfortable, his words full of implication, making listeners uneasy. Chu Kan Ha stood up, pretending to hold her head high as she withdrew. Although she said she would leave, she still left a sarcastic remark demanding respect for the family. Chu Kan's mother watched the rude woman's retreating back, her eyes mixed with resentment and fatigue. The atmosphere gradually returned to calm. Before leaving, Chu Kan H1EA1C turned back to warn Chu Than. Enjoy your university life while you can, because you will soon be forced into marriage. Chu Than gave a cold smile, slightly curling his lips in response. Why should I listen to you? His eyes showing contempt and indifference. Chu Qing remained calm in the face of threats from Chu King. She asserted that marriage was not something he could decide, and that marrying a wealthy woman would bring prosperity to the whole family. But Chu Qing did not yield. He coldly retorted, mocking her by comparing selling oneself to cheapness, which instantly angered Chu King. He continued to provoke, suggesting that if she really liked selling herself so much, she should try selling her leg to see how much it's worth. Chu Qing's sarcastic tone pushed the tension to its peak. Chu Qing was criticized for having distorted thoughts, dragging his mother into the heavy conversation as well. He coldly turned away, suppressing his anger in silence at the insult. Under the family's gaze, Chu Qing quietly left the room with a gloomy expression. He entered his private room, closed the door, as if wanting to isolate himself from the world. In the darkness, Chu Qing's eyes flashed with anger, his heart stirred by injustice. Night fell over the city. Chu Qing stood by the window, calling Chen Zai with a serious voice. I have something I need help with. The night sky was quiet, a large building brightly lit as if preparing for an unexpected event. Chu Qing's second aunt was happily at a bar, holding two young girls in her arms, her face flushed from alcohol, chatting incessantly. From outside the karaoke room, a figure silently watched the scene inside, cold eyes observing every action of the second aunt. A pink-haired girl called, Sister Yi, I found someone you once said you wanted to take, a leg. A seductive woman holding a phone replied, Wait. She leaned back in her chair, wearing a cold smile. While you're at it, get me a kidney too. At dawn, sunlight slanted through the closed door, signaling the start of a new day. Chu Qing sat meditating in the room. Before him, a cluster of mysterious lights and floating jade beads radiating strange energy. A drop of condensed spiritual energy slowly fell into his palm, carrying a sacred aura. Chu Qing carefully observed the spiritual energy in his hand, silently thinking about the chaotic situation in Jinmen and deciding to create a magical weapon to protect his loved ones. A small rod-shaped magical weapon appeared before him. Chu Qing seriously activated his spiritual power to begin the crafting process. Chu Qing sat on the bed, focusing on controlling the magical weapon. A strong beam of light shot out from his hand, carrying a stream of spiritual power weaving through the air. A sparkling jade pendant appeared, enveloped by radiant energy, as if preparing for a sealing ritual. The formation burst with light, covering Chu Qing's entire body. He concentrated on casting a seal, ancient magical symbols appearing clearly in midair. Chu Qing opened his eyes, the sealing flames slowly dissipating. His face showed seriousness and determination, as if he had completed an important preparatory step. Chu Qing continued refining the jade pendants. He thought silently. The quality of the jade bought by Jia Yu is quite good. It can store defensive formations and help me sense danger when the wearer is threatened. On a peaceful morning, Chu Than sat with his parents around a simple dining table, enjoying a modest but warm breakfast. His father softly spoke, advising, Little Than, you must study hard, his voice full of worry and love. Chu Than was silent for a moment, looking straight at his parents as if pondering something important. He smiled confidently and replied, "I understand, father. Don't worry, mother. I will personally handle the matters at my mother's home." His father smiled gently and responded, "You don't need to do that because for us. As long as you are happy, that's enough." During breakfast, Chu Than suddenly said he had prepared a special gift. He took out 3 jade pendants, saying they were for his father, mother, and sister. Both adults were surprised when holding the pendants, feeling the unusual energy emanating from within. When touching the jade surface, a warm aura enveloped their hands, spreading a pleasant sensation throughout their bodies. Chu Than's father smiled happily and asked where he got these precious items because they brought a magical warmth. Chu Qing smiled confidently, saying the pendants were obtained from a high priest in the temple, guaranteeing their quality could not be bad. A new day began with a clear blue sky. In the classroom, the teacher was lecturing in front of a board full of formulas while students attentively took notes. Chu Qing leaned his head on his hand, exhaustion clearly visible. He complained inwardly that this mortal body couldn't endure many nights of refining magical weapons. A purple-haired female classmate worriedly whispered, "Chu Qing, wake up, it's class time," but he was still sound asleep. The approaching footsteps of the teacher made the purple-haired girl panic. She hurriedly bowed her head into her book, fearing being implicated. The teacher suddenly slammed her hand on the desk and loudly called Chu Qing's name, startling him awake in class. With a knowing smile, the teacher told Chu Qing to come to the board to solve a problem as a mild punishment for sleeping during class. Chu Qing picked up the chalk, sweating profusely because he hadn't paid attention to the lesson. He was confused and didn't know what to do. At that moment, Chu Qing recalled when Song Kairan taught him a similar problem. A light flashed in his mind. With renewed confidence, Chu Qing quickly wrote the solution on the board to the surprise of the entire class. Chu Qing put the chalk down on the tray, his expression confident as if solving the problem was a trivial matter. He turned to look at the teacher and smiled, saying he had finished. The teacher and the whole class were surprised by his speed and accuracy. The students below buzzed with discussion. One exclaimed that he solved everything correctly despite sleeping through the lesson, while they still didn't understand anything. The teacher smiled and gently reminded that even if prepared in advance, sleeping in class is not allowed. Chu Qing scratched his head awkwardly, thinking to himself, in his past life, he was a failed university student who had never been treated like this. The teacher suddenly appointed him as class monitor, her eyes shining brightly, leaving him stunned and unable to react in time. Under the teacher's overwhelming presence, Chu Qing could only lower his head helplessly and accept. "No, I completely do not object." Chu Qing lay slumped over his desk in class, seemingly still drifting into sleep after a long night. As the sunlight shone in, Chu Qing slowly opened his eyes, telling himself it was time to start crafting talismans for the Yi family as promised. He summoned a talisman shaped like a sword blade, calculating that each talisman could be worth up to 30,000 due to its ability to block a critical strike. Just as he was concentrating, a male student tapped his shoulder to wake him and said he wanted to talk, startling Chu Qing. A small smoke explosion occurred between the two. Chu Qing nearly lost control, while the other boy was left blackened like ash. Chu Qing was trying to extinguish the blue flame coming from his hand when a classmate reminded him. He hurriedly blew on it repeatedly to hide the unexpected incident. After the flame died down, Chu Qing examined the magical weapon he had just completed. Although not damaged, the quality clearly did not meet the standards. Though dissatisfied, Chu Qing still handed the magical weapon to his friend with a warning. "It can protect you from accidents, but don't tell anyone." His friend accepted it with deep gratitude, calling the gift a protective wooden sword, and excitedly revealed he also had something to give back. With a proud expression, the friend pulled out a mini soda bottle and solemnly presented it to Chu Qing as a precious gift. Chu Qing was stunned when receiving the gift from his classmate, a tiny soda bottle that left him speechless. Upon realizing it was Coca-Cola and only half full, Chu Qing flew into a rage and grabbed the chubby friend's ear tightly as he apologized profusely. Calming down, Chu Qing crossed his arms and asked directly, "What's going on?" His friend cheerfully invited him to the upcoming school sports event, emphasizing that he had once defeated the Academy King. Chu Ching coldly declined. "Not interested, I'm busy." Undeterred, the friend continued persuading him that Chu Ching's video clip had gone viral, and this might be their last memory before graduation. Chu Ching remained silent, half resigned and half helpless. Looking out at the sunlit window frame, Chu Ching reflected, now back in high school, he should fully enjoy this time. Nodding at the invitation, Chu Ching agreed to participate in the event. The chubby friend happily prepared to receive his reward. Chu Ching cautiously asked again, suspecting his friend had bet something. The friend denied it evasively, unwilling to admit. A girl with long legs and a short skirt suddenly appeared, causing two male students to blush shyly. The orange-haired girl entered the classroom in a radiant aura, stirring up excitement with her striking appearance. The whole class buzzed when they saw a standout girl enter. Two female students at the back recognized her as Ling Weiner, the school idol who sang beautifully and played piano well. Ling Weiner approached Chu Ching, smiled, and waved. "Long time no see." Chu Ching smiled back at her greeting. The chubby friend standing beside him blushed awkwardly, seemingly flustered by Ling Weiner's beauty. Ling Weiner praised Chu Ching for recently becoming very popular and even defeating Tang Jian in sports. She confessed straightforwardly, "I like you." Chu Ching modestly replied with a confident smile, "I was just at my best that day." Ling Weiner leaned on Chu Ching's desk, inviting him to attend a reunion of old high school friends, and subtly hinted to guess who was organizing it. Chu Ching coldly guessed Zhuo Buquin's name immediately, surprising Ling Weiner with his sharpness. Chu Ching glanced over, showing clear annoyance as he said Zhuo Buquin was the type who craved attention, and surely no one else but him would organize it. Ling Weiner gently placed her hand on Chu Ching's shoulder, inviting him by saying many people missed him and would be very sad if he didn't come. Chu Ching smiled softly at the invitation and responded with a gentle look. "You asked, how could I not go?" Ling Weiner raised her hand to mimic making a phone call, smiling brightly, and told Chu Ching that everything had been decided, and she would call him tomorrow. Before leaving, Ling Weiner suddenly pinched Chu Ching's cheek, leaving him stunned and unable to react in time. She leaned in close, teasing that the more she looked at Chu Ching, the more handsome he seemed. Perhaps that was why Tang Jian had to fall for him. Chu Ching created a small flame in the classroom, focusing on controlling the energy. He was stared at in surprise by his deskmate, who asked skeptically, "Chu Ching, are you playing with fire in class?" Chu Ching looked at the item in his hand and sighed. Although it wasn't broken, the quality was very poor. He frowned, clearly showing his dissatisfaction. He handed the item to his friend and whispered, "Take it. It will protect you from disaster, but don't tell anyone." His friend was moved, holding the item like a treasure, then happily took out another small object from his pocket, intending to return the favor. A mini cola bottle, half full, was solemnly presented as a precious gift. D-E-N-G, 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 an effect emphasizing the solemnity of the present. Chu Ching silently watched Ling Weiner leave, feeling puzzled, while his chubby friend still looked bewildered. Chu Ching frowned in thought, wondering since when Ling Weiner dared to tease him like that. The chubby friend curiously asked when Chu Ching had become close to Ling Weiner. Chu Ching calmly replied that they had studied together in elementary and middle school. Hearing this, the friend excitedly shouted, called Ling Weiner a goddess, and begged Chu Ching to get her autograph. Annoyed by the disturbance, Chu Ching squeezed his friend's face and scolded directly, "Go ask her yourself if you have the guts." Chu Ching stood in front of the desk, smiling gently at the purple-haired girl, making her surprised and blush. She admitted that Chu Ching's method was much easier to understand, her eyes full of appreciation and admiration. She smiled and gently clasped hands to thank Chu Ching, a warm moment under the soft sunlight in the schoolyard. The girl confessed that she had spent the whole afternoon solving a math problem, but still hadn't found the solution. Chu Ching leaned over confidently and said he would show her, thinking to himself that this was a problem he had already solved in class. They both sat down to solve the problem together, attracting the attention of nearby classmates. The girl was still amazed by Chu Ching's confidence and calmness. Under the curious gazes of surrounding classmates, Chu Qing awkwardly scratched his head, trying to find a way to escape the attention while explaining to Tang Jian. Tang Jian was surprised when Chu Qing suddenly held her hand, causing her heart to flutter slightly. Chu Qing smiled gently and said to Tang Jian, "Come with me, I have something to tell you." Under the tree in the schoolyard, the two stood facing each other, the atmosphere becoming quieter and more private than ever. Chu Qing placed a small object into Tang Jian's hand and instructed, "This is for you, always carry it with you." The purple-haired girl looked surprised at the glowing jade pendant in her hand, sensing that something strange was hidden inside it. She hesitated to return it, thinking the item was too precious and that she didn't need it. Chu Qing held her hand back and gently explained that this was a magical item that would protect her, as long as she trusted him. Moved by his sincerity, the girl was quietly touched, her eyes shining with gratitude that was hard to hide. Chu Qing sat resting his chin on the study desk, his eyes absent-mindedly looking out the window, seemingly lost in thought. Taking advantage of no one paying attention, Chu Qing quietly opened the desk drawer and used magic to condense small throwing knives. The school bell rang, signaling the end of class. Students gradually left the classroom. Chu Qing also prepared to leave, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. Inside his backpack were dozens of throwing knives he had just crafted, ready to be traded. Chu Qing muttered to himself, deciding to find deep than high to see how much she was willing to pay for this batch. As he was about to leave the classroom, Chu Than suddenly felt a hand on his shoulder, making him startle and turn around. It turned out to be his chubby classmate, who happily draped an arm over Chu Than's shoulder and invited him. "Want to hang out with us tonight?" Chu Than turned his head and asked curiously in a short tone, "Where to?" The friend widened his eyes, raised a finger in a vow, and replied mysteriously, "A very interesting place, I promise." Chu Than declined the invitation to hang out, gently waving his hand as he left the classroom while his chubby friend called out in disappointment. At night, the moon quietly hung high above the brightly lit house, and a female voice called out loudly, "Chu Than Than." As soon as he entered the house, Chu Than was suddenly hugged tightly by a black-haired girl, causing him to freeze in surprise. The girl's eyes widened as she felt a gentle touch on her hand, Chu Than's hand holding the gem's chain. The girl smiled brightly at him, complaining about having waited too long. "You finally came, I was bored to death." In the moment of the hug, the girl's sharp eyes twitched. She sniffed lightly and immediately detected something suspicious. Chu Than tried to reassure the black-haired girl when she suddenly got angry after smelling a strange scent. She questioned whether he had been with another girl. To dispel her suspicion, Chu Than took out a glowing pendant and handed it to her, saying it was a gift that required no response. The girl stared at the item with doubt, while Chu Than turned away, preparing for the next task. Suddenly, Chu Than threw the crystal cup forcefully into the distance with a decisive and precise motion. The girl was startled in amazement as the pendant around her neck suddenly shone intensely, as if reacting to something approaching. A fierce light burst from the gem in the girl's hand, forming a barrier that blocked an attack from the front. Tran Hoa Hoa woke up, looked up, and saw Chu Than smiling in front of her. The light from the window softly illuminated them both. Her face suddenly turned serious, her gaze determined, "Because if you leave, I will." Chu Than smiled, explaining that the gem would automatically activate to protect, its effect far surpassing ordinary charms. The girl was moved as she looked at Chu Than, her eyes showing appreciation and trust. Unable to contain her emotions, the girl rushed to hug Chu Than tightly, and they both fell onto the bed in a surprising position. Chu Than was pinned down on the bed. The girl looked at him with a warning gaze, reminding him that the gift was not a pass to flirt with other girls outside. Suddenly, her eyes flashed as she discovered something. She lay down, looking up at Chu Than thoughtfully, while he slowly sat up. Chu Than gently said that he had other matters to attend to elsewhere, but would come back to visit her later. Night fell. The next location was Tran Hoa Hoa's apartment. Chu Than pushed open the door and stepped into the messy apartment. He was surprised to find the door unlocked and everything in disarray, as if a chaos had just occurred. On the sofa, Tran Hoa Hoa curled up under a blanket, sleeping soundly with a tired and somewhat distressed face. Chu Than bent down, gently stroking her hair, softly asking, "A nightmare?" Hoa Hoa's face still had traces of tears. Unable to hold back her emotions, Hoa Hoa rushed to hug Chu Than tightly, crying, "I dreamed of my mother again. She abandoned me and Dad." Chen Huahua sat up abruptly, worriedly asking the young man if he was like her mother, leaving without a word. The young man pondered and admitted that perhaps one day he would have to return to his own world. Seeing Huahua's uneasy eyes, he smiled and patted her head, reassuring her that he would never leave her. Chen Huahua laughed, pretending to threaten, "If you dare leave me." She rushed forward to hug him tightly, shouting, "Bite you to death so you know." In the quiet darkness, the pink-haired girl slept soundly on the bed, her steady breathing blending into the peacefulness of the room. Chu Qing sat beside her, deep in thought about going home for the weekend, worried that his father would discover his absence. At dawn, Chu Qing quietly picked up his phone and clicked the mouse on the desk, a simple but deliberate action. The light from the screen flickered onto his face, his eyes full of suspicion. "What is this?" The screen lit up completely white. Something was about to happen, pulling Chu Qing into an unexpected development. The pink-haired girl still slept soundly under the blanket, her face peaceful in the silent night. Chu Qing sat quietly beside her, his gaze directed at the brightly lit city outside the window. He silently thought he must return home for the weekend to avoid being caught by his father. He held his phone, turned on the computer, and clicked the mouse. The screen light flared up in the dark room. Chu Qing's eyes lit up when he saw a strange file appear on the screen. The screen displayed information about the ancient martial arts clan of Jin Men, which surprised Chu Qing. Chu Qing received a call from his father, showing clear worry as he cautiously greeted him. His father immediately responded sternly, saying he would ask his mother to pick him up if he knew where Chu Qing was. Chu Qing tried to stay calm and said he was near the Bak Jia market, trying to avoid trouble. Under the moonlight, a car stopped in front of Chu Qing. His mother had arrived very quickly. Chu Qing was surprised and praised his mother for coming quickly, while she smiled gently and replied that she happened to be nearby. Chu Than's mother smiled meaningfully and turned to question her son about the scent of women's perfume on him. Chu Than awkwardly replied that he only attended a friend's birthday party, secretly lamenting women's scary sixth sense. His mother sternly warned, "It's okay to go to parties, but absolutely not to be alone with girls." Chu Than nodded understandingly, but couldn't help wondering why his mother still smoked despite promising to quit. His mother smiled and answered that the cigarette was just to cover the scent of perfume on him, because if his father found out, it would be very troublesome. The teenager smiled and thanked his mother for helping to cover up what happened last night. His phone rang, notifying him of a new message. He was surprised to find that the Deep clan had transferred him 1.2 million just to get a talisman. Chu Qing pondered the potential to make money by producing items and elixirs from the cultivation world, realizing this could be a path to building his own business empire. Under the moonlight, his mother whispered a reminder: if she found out his father smoked again, she should be informed immediately. Chu Qing agreed at once, clearly siding with his mother. Chu Qing texted Jia Yu, asking if he was free because he wanted to bring something special. Jia Yu immediately responded, agreeing to meet. The two met at a restaurant styled in ancient fashion, glowing with lights. They both sat down at a sumptuous dining table, chatting warmly in a cozy atmosphere. Chu Qing took out a glowing jade pendant and handed it to Jia Yu with a serious expression. Jia Yu looked at the precious gift in amazement and emotionally asked, "Chu Qing, this is very valuable. Do you really want to give it to me?" Chu Qing smiled confidently, avoiding explaining the item he just gave, assuming Jia Yu already knew well. Jia Yu raised a frothy beer glass, smiled gratefully, and praised Chu Qing when he learned that Chu Qing had also investigated him. After the touching words, Jia Yu slammed the beer glass down on the table, spilling beer over, showing his overwhelming emotions. He bowed his head, his voice lowered, admitting this was the first time someone sincerely treated him just for friendship. Chu Qing was surprised and asked with concern, "Why do you say that?" seemingly wanting to understand his friend's feelings better. Chu Qing discovered information about the Jin Men traditional martial arts clan while researching on the computer. Turning to look at the pink-haired girl who was sound asleep, he silently felt grateful that she had independently searched for and compiled all the documents to help him. Gently, he placed a pendant on the pillow beside her as a secret gift. Chu Qing bent down and softly kissed her forehead with a gentle gaze. The next day, while walking on the street, Chu Qing received an unexpected call. Jia Yu banged her head on the table, laughing hysterically when she heard Chu Qing's story about being forced into marriage, making Chu Qing just cross his arms helplessly, anticipating this reaction. Jia Yu raised her glass, her eyes shining with emotion, then happily invited Chu Qing to drink all night to celebrate their friendship. The two clinked glasses amid a radiant atmosphere, the clink sounding like a congratulatory toast to the fat girl Chu Qing mentioned. Late at night, Chu Qing staggered up the stairs in a drunken state, holding onto the railing to keep his balance. At the same time, a strange girl stealthily approached the front door of his house, acting suspiciously in silence. Just as the girl was about to sneak inside, a hand placed on her shoulder startled her into a loud scream. Chu Qing quickly covered his sister's mouth, whispering reproaches for fear their parents would find out, while also complaining about the strong smell of alcohol. The girl angrily retorted, blaming Chu Qing back for also drinking until midnight and worrying about his reputation. She staggered away, eyes glazed and burping as she walked, so drunk she seemed to see two worlds. As soon as Chu Qing called, the girl collapsed into his arms, completely losing control from being too drunk. The drunk girl was gently laid on the bed by Xiao Feng, still in a dreamy state. Xiao Feng held his head, feeling dizzy, the intoxication starting to affect him more strongly. Unable to keep his balance, he fell forward. In his drunken state, his hand unconsciously touched something soft that made his mind go wild. The girl vaguely called Xiao Feng's name in a whisper full of innuendo, making the situation even more dangerous. Chu Qing woke up in a daze, eyes blurry, head spinning, and unconsciously exclaimed, "Who is Xiao Feng?" Upon opening his eyes, he was shocked to find the girl moving close in a suggestive kissing posture, freezing him in extreme panic. Immediately, Chu Qing jumped up and shouted in terror, his face showing clear fright. He hurriedly ran outside, telling himself, "Damn it, alcohol is really harmful. I swear I'll never drink again, never." Morning came. The peaceful atmosphere of the city seemed unrelated to the chaotic events of last night. Chu Qing tried on new clothes in the store, praising himself as handsome in the mirror, making the female staff beside him also mesmerized. Confident in his appearance, Chu Qing asked the staff to send all the clothes he tried on to his home, receiving enthusiastic agreement from the girl. Leaving the store, Chu Qing told himself he had finished preparing clothes for the class reunion, and now just needed his own car so as not to bother Jia Yu anymore. While walking on the street, Chu Qing heard someone call his name. He turned around with surprise. A stylishly dressed young man wearing many sparkling accessories smiled and asked, "What's up? Don't recognize your old classmate," revealing an unexpected reunion. A silver-haired young man recounts his past growing up with his father, only learning in high school that his mother belonged to a powerful family. Afterwards, he was taken to his mother's house and transferred to a school for the wealthy. At the new school, he was discriminated against and seen as an outcast. Despite trying hard for 2 years, the scrutinizing looks from everyone never changed. A male student wearing a blue hoodie responded that although their circumstances were different, he himself did not live an easy life either. He said that his mother also came from a prominent family, but because the clan opposed it, his parents decided to run away together. Just recently, his mother's family appeared again and forced him to marry a wealthy woman, weighing up to 200 kg, which made the silver-haired friend spit out his drink in disbelief. Chu Qing walked across the schoolyard, silently lowering his head, while 2 students behind him whispered mockingly about a ridiculous rumor. A group of female students blocked Chu Qing's way. The girl with green hair teased and judged him by his appearance, while her friend behind joined in with insulting words. Ignoring everything, Chu Qing quietly turned his back and left, lonely in the calm afternoon breeze. Now grown up, Chu Ching recalls the painful high school years. He realizes it all started with Zhu Bu Qin, the one who spread lies. Chu Ching's eyes gleamed coldly. Tonight, he silently vowed to make Zhu Bu Qin experience bullying in his own way. Chu Ching heard an invitation from a car shop having a discount for its 10th anniversary. Just as he was planning to buy a car, he stepped in to take a look. The staff introduced a small red sports car, confidently believing it suited Chu Ching's style. However, Chu Ching felt the car was too feminine, so he scratched his head, declined, and asked if there was a more masculine model. Finally, he chose a powerful black Porsche and decisively said, "I want this one." As he left, the staff whispered, thinking he was too young to buy a luxury car and must have a wealthy sponsor. Chu Ching stood silently in front of the car, secretly mocking society's view that boys with money are supported by others rather than their own ability. As night fell, Chu Ching stepped out of the car with a confident and elegant appearance, ready to face the class reunion party. He recognized the luxurious restaurant in front of him as the place he once went to eat with Jia Yu, bringing back old memories. Chu Ching entered the restaurant with a calm expression. The door closed behind him, signaling an upcoming confrontation. In the banquet room, old classmates were laughing and chatting around the table, discussing games and life, unaware that Chu Ching had arrived. Chu Ching calmed himself down, telling himself he was used to situations like this. He approached the empty chair, and just as he sat down, he caught the surprised gaze of the pink-haired girl. Chu Ching wondered why Lin Wan, who had invited him, had not yet arrived at the reunion. The girl smiled and replied that she did not know about Lin Wan's situation, but revealed that Chu Ching had just caused Zhu Bu Qin to lose a bet for not wearing the uniform. Chu Ching was angry, not understanding why Zhu Bu Qin still bet even though he saw him wearing normal clothes yesterday. Meanwhile, Zhu Bu Qin stood with friends in the corner of the room, eyes full of calculation, watching Chu Ching. Having lost the bet and lost face, Zhu Bu Qin was furious, jealousy radiating from his envious gaze. Chu Ching calmly listened to the remarks from the pink-haired girl, while his eyes grew cold. The girl laughed, thinking Zhu Bu Qin believed Chu Ching wouldn't be able to buy anything. Chu Ching turned and called out loudly across the banquet table, deliberately teasing Zhu Bu Qin. "I heard you're covering the meals for the whole week. Don't forget my share." Zhu Bu Qin tried to keep calm, stood up and declared strongly, "Of course, all of you here next week, the cafeteria meals are on me." The crowd cheered excitedly at Zhu Bu Qin's promise, leaving him standing amid the applause but feeling confused inside. Blushing deeply, Zhu Bu Qin clenched his fists tightly, gritted his teeth and shouted in frustration, "Chu Ching!" Chu Ching remained calm, even though all eyes were on him. He silently reminded himself that he was very used to situations like this. As Chu Ching approached the table, a beautiful pink-haired girl looked up, her eyes suddenly lighting up when she recognized him. Chu Ching wondered why Lin Wan, the person who invited him, hadn't appeared yet. The pink-haired girl just shrugged slightly, responding with an indifferent attitude. The girl revealed that because Chu Ching wasn't wearing a uniform as Zhu Bu Qin had predicted, he lost the bet and had to treat everyone to meals for a whole week. Chu Ching was surprised at Zhu Bu Qin's foolishness. Even though he saw himself buy new clothes yesterday, he still confidently made the wrong bet and got a bitter outcome. Chu Ching calmly ate grilled meat, while the purple-haired girl angrily questioned the male student about his comment, playing basketball a little, when Chu Ching had actually defeated him. The boy in black awkwardly sweated and hurriedly explained that he didn't mean it that way. The purple-haired girl seriously warned that sports represent the school's honor, so if a team is formed, personal feelings must be set aside and focus should be on winning. The male student holding a glass of wine smiled slightly, saying he had no problem, but the one to ask was Chu Ching. Meanwhile, Chu Ching continued eating calmly. The purple-haired girl turned to Chu Ching and seriously asked his opinion about joining the basketball team. Chu Ching gently picked up a piece of meat, assessed its perfect doneness, then smiled quietly with satisfaction. He reached out, offering the piece of meat to the purple-haired girl with a warm smile, telling her to open her mouth. The girl was surprised by this intimate gesture. Her eyes softened and her lips curved into an emotional smile. In the warm, sparkling atmosphere, she leaned forward to take the piece of meat that Chu Qing offered. In the distance, Zhuo Buquan watched the scene with a darkened face, gripping his wine glass tightly, his heart screaming in despair. Ling Weiner gently asked Chu Qing if he wanted to join the basketball team, her eyes seeming to hope for something from him. Chu Qing grinned mischievously and replied that he would join on one condition, that she had to kiss him. Unfazed, Ling Weiner smiled provocatively and asked back if just a normal kiss was enough. Then what about a French kiss? Chu Qing leaned in close, gently placed his hand under her chin and softly said, "All right, but I have to be the one to initiate. Close your eyes." Ling Weiner closed her eyes, her face blushing, lips slightly parted, ready to receive Chu Qing's kiss. The moment felt frozen in time. Tang Ziyan gently touched her lips with a finger, her eyes filled with seductive meaning. She smiled softly and whispered to Chu Qing that if he won the prize, he would receive a special reward. The classmates around teased loudly. Tang Ziyan already has a boyfriend, so she has to treat everyone to celebrate. Ziyan responded happily, while Chu Qing said he had declared from the start that he would win her over. Chu Qing smiled and stood up, saying he would invite the whole group to have dessert at a nearby restaurant after the party. The friends cheered excitedly when Chu Qing invited the whole table out to eat, praising him as a generous boyfriend, and saying Tang Ziyan couldn't look at anyone else but him. Ziyan anxiously asked if he could afford to treat everyone, but Chu Qing laughed and confidently rebutted that he could definitely pay. Chu Qing gently rubbed Ziyan's head, reassuring her that now that she was his girlfriend, he would not disappoint her. Ziyan suddenly pinched Chu Qing's cheek, teasingly scolding him for being a man yet trying to steal a girl's fame. The atmosphere around the couple became sweet and lively, causing the whole group to tease them, while Ziyan shyly leaned on Chu Qing. Standing outside the spotlight, the guy wearing the shine shirt clenched his fists angrily, thinking that this party should have been his stage, and vowed to make Chu Qing pay. At a quiet cafe, Chu Qing sat chatting with his friends, a relaxed atmosphere enveloping the space. Tang Ziyan happily introduced the dessert while eating, praising how delicious the place was. Chu Qing sat beside her looking satisfied, while the boy wearing the shine shirt seemed quietly lost in thought. Suddenly, he excitedly shouted when he saw a familiar person enter the cafe, Lin Wan. Lin Wan, the curly-haired girl in a black dress, immediately attracted attention as she appeared. She smiled gently and explained that she was late because she was busy. As Lin Wan approached, her gaze directed at Chu Qing made the boy in the shine shirt both surprised and embarrassed, quietly whispering her name. Chu Qing watched Lin Wan come closer, smiling calmly and teasing affectionately. "You're here, huh? You really shouldn't keep me waiting." Lin Wan explained that the company urgently required her to shoot a video, so she couldn't arrive earlier. Chu Qing asked if she had signed the contract and was ready to debut. Meanwhile, a male student standing by the piano announced that the main artist was absent today, and suggested letting Zhu Buyun perform instead. Zhu Buyun smiled and accepted, but said performing alone would be boring. He proposed that Lin Wan dance with him to make it more interesting. Lin Wan responded confidently with a gentle smile. "Of course, no problem." Chu Qing quietly sat looking toward the stage, his face calm but his eyes full of thought. A hand reached out as if inviting attention. Lin Wan stepped out under the lights, beaming brightly, and declared, "This dance I dedicate to my dearest friend." The group of friends surrounded Chu Qing, laughing loudly without stopping. They teased, "Chu Qing is so lucky to have the affection of two goddesses at once," while he could only remain silent with a helpless expression. Zhu Buyun sat at the piano with a displeased look, his hands clenched tightly, showing rising jealousy. Under the dim lights, the piano music resonated as Zhu Buyun began to play, while Lin Wan immersed herself in the dance, gracefully spinning amid the sparkling space. From afar, Chu Qing smiled calmly and turned to Tang Ziyan. "That kid plays pretty well." Tang Ziyan silently watched, her eyes deep and thoughtful. Tang Ziyan showed dissatisfaction, holding a glass, and asked Chu Qing if the dance was really better. Chu Qing teased her, calling her Goddess Tang, and suspected she was jealous. Ziyan blushed, turned away angrily and demanded Chu Qing pay attention to the dancer because she was performing just for him. Chu Qing laughed at Xian's childish reaction, while she angrily tapped his face in front of everyone. Seeing this, the boy in the shine shirt grew angry, feeling insulted that the girl he liked was dancing while Chu Qing flirted with someone else. As the music reached its climax, the teenager slammed his hand hard on the piano keys, clearly expressing his rising anger. He stood up abruptly, angrily pointed at Chu Qing and shouted, demanding he understand what respect for others means. Chu Qing remained calm and smiled, replying that playing well was the other's matter, while listening well was his own. The teenager angrily pointed at Lin Wan, questioning Chu Qing how he could be so indifferent to the person dancing for him. Finally, Chu Qing lowered his head, his eyes darkening, silently tightening his glass of wine as if preparing for something serious. Chu Qing raised his glass, calmly looking toward Lin Wan, who stood quietly, seemingly ready to make an important decision. Without hesitation, Chu Qing drank the entire glass in one breath, his expression cold but determined. Lin Wan smiled gently, her eyes shining with trust and unspoken emotion. She stepped forward lightly, beginning her dance with grace and elegance, making the space seem to still with every movement. Lin Wu's face darkened, her eyes filled with anger after witnessing the scene between Chu Qing and Tang Jian. Her anger exploded, Lin Wu shouted loudly, questioning Chu Qing for daring to mock while others were performing, disregarding the basic rules of an audience. Chu Qing calmly retorted, criticizing the music Lin Wu was playing as mediocre, and declared that if it were him, he would have cut off those hands long ago out of shame. Unable to bear the insult, Lin Wu unleashed energy from both hands, angrily demanding Chu Qing kneel and apologize for his offensive words. Chu Qing coldly set the condition, challenging his opponent with a sharp warning, "If you lose, say goodbye to your hands." Faced with the unexpected declaration of war, the boy in black stood stunned, his face pale, speechless. Without needing an instrument, Chu Qing softly whistled, each gentle note from his lips declaring his true talent. The sound spread throughout the hall, everyone fell silent then smiled passionately, swept away by the enchanting melody. Tang Jian and Lin Wanner suddenly recognized the familiar tune, their eyes full of emotion. Zhu Buquin was amazed as he was drawn into the magical wave of music, his eyes sparkling, unable to speak. In a beautiful illusion, he seemed transported to a field full of butterflies and flowers, his mind becoming hazy and dazed. Meanwhile, a male student in the crowd emotionally exclaimed that this was the divine hymn of the gods, a song he had learned when reincarnated as a god in a past life. Chu Qing smiled confidently amid the enchanting musical haze, winning hearts without needing to perform with his hands. In the crowd, some heard such a beautiful song for the first time, while others affirmed that this time Zhu Buquin was surely doomed. The boy wearing shine turned pale, realizing the danger from Chu Qing's cold gaze. Chu Qing stood amid a fierce black-purple aura, the shadow behind him like the embodiment of an impending rage about to explode. The other trembled and stammered, Chu Qing, you," unable to believe the overwhelming momentum closing in. A hand appeared, stopping the attack at the last moment with decisive force. Lin Wan stepped forward, standing in front of Chu Qing, her determined gaze making the other only tremble in fear. Chu Qing coldly looked at the girl with orange hair and asked directly, "Are you planning to beg me to spare him?" The girl stood silent, speechless, her face full of confusion and tension. The purple-haired girl stepped forward, placing her hand on Chu Qing's shoulder, gently restraining him. "We are all colleagues, don't scare him anymore. He will reflect on it himself." Chu Qing gradually calmed down, admitting that he had been swept away by anger from the song, and almost forgot this was not the celestial realm. He stood silently, his eyes thoughtfully fixed on the piano, saying nothing. Chu Qing coldly held a knife to cut the cake, his calm eyes hiding a murderous intent that froze the atmosphere. He suddenly changed expression, gave a strange smile, then held the knife and advanced toward the opponent with a sinister look, causing the once insolent one to scream in panic. In the dark gloom, Chu Qing's image seemed to turn into a demon, swinging his hand repeatedly so the opponent could not defend and could only scream in despair. After a while, the once arrogant one was beaten into disorder, falling to the ground drenched in sweat, his face full of extreme terror. He grabbed his head and screamed in panic when he discovered his hair had been shaved clean, a cruel and humiliating punishment. Zhu Buquin screamed in horror as the knife grazed his leg and stabbed into the floor. Chu Qing clenched his fist tightly, coldly declaring that he was no longer someone easy to bully like before. Zhu Buquin curled up, trembling as he retorted, "Chu Qing, you're going too far." Chu Qing looked down with contemptuous eyes and replied, "If I lose, will you spare me? I only kneel before my parents." He ended decisively, "Get lost, I don't want to see your face ever again." The boy wearing shine panicked, holding his head and turning to run away under the gaze of Chu Qing and the two girls. Chu Qing walked away coldly, the eyes of the surrounding crowd heavy with embarrassment, and bowed silently. Chu Qing suddenly smiled brightly. "The annoying guy is gone, let's party." The party atmosphere immediately became lively again, everyone laughing and chatting happily as if nothing had happened. The purple-haired girl looked at Chu Qing teasingly. "Every time like this, you become even harder to understand." Chu Qing smiled in response to the purple-haired girl, his eyes full of confidence, and gently affirmed, "Of course you know who I am." After the party, Chu Qing sat in the car, facing a building with ancient architecture brightly lit in the night. He did not rush to leave, quietly gazing out the window. He smelled the lingering scent of beer on his shirt, his expression briefly worried. "How can I go home like this?" he thought silently. Chu Qing took out his phone and dialed a number. His hand tightened slightly, as if considering something important. His voice sounded resolute. "Sis, I'm not coming home tonight. Please tell Mom and Dad something for me, whatever reason you think of." Chu Qing called his sister, asking her to lie to help him be absent tonight. His sister angrily asked why and refused to help, but as soon as she heard, "You can choose the payment," she immediately changed her attitude and agreed without hesitation. The quiet night sky enveloped the apartment complex, where Chu Qing was heading. Chu Qing stood before a room with a nameplate reading, "Hua Hua," silently guessing that she might have woken up. Without hesitation, he inserted the key into the lock and gently turned it to open the door. Chu Qing arrived at Hua Hua's door and was surprised to find it unlocked. Alertness was clearly visible on his face. Just as he opened the door and stepped inside, Chu Qing was shocked to witness a man forcing Hua Hua, leaving him stunned for a moment. The man with a fierce face tightly gripped Hua Hua's wrist, while the girl was terrified and helpless. Chu Qing watched the scene with tense eyes. The man turned around angrily and asked Hua Hua about Chu Qing's identity, while she remained silent, unsure how to explain. Chu Qing immediately stepped forward and declared firmly, "Cheng Hua Hua is my girlfriend, and who are you?" making the whole room fall silent in surprise. The man clenched his teeth and questioned Chu Qing if he was Cheng Hua Hua's boyfriend. Chu Qing answered decisively, "Yes." The man smiled wickedly, claiming he was Hua Hua's father and that she owed him 3 million yuan, then demanded Chu Qing pay on her behalf. Cheng Hua Hua immediately refuted. She angrily shouted that he was the one who borrowed money from her and then gambled it away, not the other way around. The man sneered, disregarding reason, arrogantly declaring, "If you're my child, you naturally have to pay my debt." Cheng Hua Hua was extremely furious, shouting in despair, "Where do you think I would get that much money?" Chu Qing threw a card at the man's face and coldly shouted, "Here's the money, get lost and never come back." The man, bruised-faced, shamelessly said, "You gave too little, I'll collect the rest from your boyfriend." Chen Huahua immediately stood in front of Chu Qing and shouted, "He has no money, he's just a student." The man laughed contemptuously, his voice full of sarcasm. "You really have no shame, now even students seduce others to support themselves." Chen Huahua angrily retorted, "If he had money, would he even care about me?" Chu Qing stood beside her, only able to sigh in frustration. The man growled, demanding Chen Huahua break up with her boyfriend if he had no money. He promised to find her a richer boyfriend. With a sinister look, he added that the one he chose would be an adult, no longer a minor. He continued to express his intention to sell Chen Huahua's body to the wealthy. Faced with this cruel proposal, the girl was stunned, her eyes full of fear and despair. Chu Ching stood next to the pink-haired girl named Huahua. He firmly asserted that she knew exactly who he was, creating an atmosphere full of implication and confidence. As night fell, Chu Ching drove to a large, old-fashioned house. He quietly sat in the car, saying nothing. Inside the car, Chu Ching was worried about the smell of beer lingering on him. He knew it would be hard to explain if he went home like that. Chu Ching took out his phone, preparing to call to find a way to handle the situation. He called his sister, told her he wouldn't come home tonight, and asked her to lie to cover up the fact that he had been drinking. The greedy man demanded Chu Ching pay 5 million instead of 3 million, his eyes flashing with scheming intent. Cheng Huahua angrily shouted, "You bastard!" unable to tolerate her father's unreasonable behavior any longer. Chu Ching coldly set a condition. The man must sign a document terminating his father-child relationship with Huahua before receiving the money. The man objected, only agreeing to write that he would no longer look for Huahua, but refusing to give up the father-child relationship. Chu Ching firmly said, "What you write is your business, but if you don't sell Huahua tonight, all agreements are void." The man panicked and agreed to sign the papers immediately just to get the money, urgently asking where to sign. Chu Ching calmly and confidently handed him the prepared paper. The man hurriedly signed and then thrust the paper out, impatiently demanding money from Chu Ching. Chu Ching held the paper, coldly replying that there was no need to rush. He wanted to show him something first. A blazing black suitcase was raised, preparing for the next decisive step. Chu Ching unleashed energy, standing in front of Huahua with sharp eyes and a burning aura that seemed to scorch the space. Huahua stood behind, stunned and speechless. Huahua's father widened his eyes in terror, shouting when he realized Chu Ching knew how to use magic, something he could not have imagined. Without a word, Chu Ching swung his hand as if casting a move, light and power converging in his palm. A sharp object shot forward, piercing through the greedy man's face, blood splattering everywhere, screams echoing in the room. Amid the splattered blood, Chu Ching and Huahua still stood firm. She tightly held his hand, her eyes still shocked but full of trust in the boy protecting her. Chu Ching sternly warned, affirming he would transfer the money but warned the man not to bother Huahua anymore, or he would pay a silent price. Hearing the threat, the man panicked, clutching his bloody wound and hurriedly fleeing the room. Huahua burst into tears and rushed to hug Chu Ching tightly, emotions overflowing after a series of pent-up hurts. Tears streaming down, Huahua choked out that she would return the entire 5 million to Chu Ching by any means. Chu Ching gently stroked her cheek, smiling and saying that to him, that amount was just a small matter. Huahua looked at Chu Ching, tears rolling down but her eyes shining with gratitude and warmth. Unable to hold back her feelings, Huahua rushed to embrace Chu Ching amid a space filled with fluttering hearts. The scene shifted outside the apartment building, morning sunlight shining through, signaling the start of a new day. Under a thin blanket, two bodies entwined. Last night they truly belonged to each other. Chu Ching opened his eyes awake, his face gentle and calm, eyes reflecting satisfaction and peace. Huahua woke up with gentle eyes, lying beside Chu Ching, her heart full of emotion after a peaceful night. Chu Ching was surprised to see Huahua awake early, joking that the sun must have risen from the west. Huahua playfully pulled him close, telling him to wash his face quickly because she had a surprise waiting. Breakfast was served on the table, including a vegetable and meat sandwich, 2 slices of fresh orange, and a glass of warm milk. Chu Ching sat at the dining table, opposite Huahua dressed lightly. Both seemed to be enjoying a peaceful morning after a long night. Huahua happily stepped to the center of the room. The light reflecting made her smile even brighter, as if she had found true happiness. Chu Ching asked in surprise, unable to hide his astonishment at Huahua's sudden tenderness toward him. Huahua gently confessed, her eyes shimmering with tears, "I don't want to lose you," words that seemed to still the atmosphere. Chu Ching tenderly pinched Huahua's cheek, reassuring her that she didn't need to try hard, just be herself. Huahua cheerfully put on an apron to wash dishes, while Chu Ching stretched and walked out looking tired. Stretching, Chu Ching complained. Huahua was full of energy, but his back was aching. The ding-dong sound rang out. He turned to look at his phone, sensing something unusual was approaching. On the screen was a message from a person with gray hair. Problem solved? A cold confirmation that something had been handled. After receiving the confirmation message, problem solved, from the mysterious friend, the male lead happily replied with thanks for lending 5 million and promised to repay soon. While texting, a notification sound made him pause, his expression briefly serious. He opened his phone to see a message from a girl with purple hair. After class, come to the basketball club. Without hesitation, he slung his backpack over his shoulder and headed straight to the school gym where the basketball club was practicing. Inside, the basketball club members were panicked and flustered under pressure. Clearly something unusual had just happened. During basketball practice, the boys kept making mistakes. Some tripped, others got hit in the face by the ball. In the stands, a long, pink-haired girl sat watching with a disappointed expression, saying nothing. She muttered in frustration, wondering if they were playing basketball or just clumsily chasing the ball. When the male lead sat beside her, she continued, saying she couldn't wait for them to improve to a girl's level, as other strong teams weren't much better. She suddenly changed the subject, reminding the male lead about the new formula he had mentioned, her eyes full of curiosity and expectation. The male lead confidently handed over the formula sheet, affirming it was a secret recipe to help mages upgrade their power. The purple-haired girl took the formula and half-jokingly asked if he was afraid she would take it and run away. He calmly replied that if he said he only wanted to help her without caring about money, would she believe him? She gently nodded. She suddenly confessed that she had truly fallen in love with him. He was stunned and asked, "So you didn't like me before?" She smiled brightly, admitting that before she only found him interesting, but now she was genuinely moved. The purple-haired girl smiled mischievously, her eyes full of emotion. But now. Before she could finish, she pulled the boy's tie and kissed him deeply amid an explosion of pink hearts. At that moment, a basketball flew at high speed, shattering the romantic atmosphere. The boy startled and widened his eyes, but it was too late. The ball hit their faces while they were still kissing. The whole team looked in shock toward the culprit. A bald boy in an orange shirt angrily stepped out with a cold expression. The male lead skillfully spun the ball on his fingertip, attracting all eyes. He joked, blaming the girl because her fan club was too big and wouldn't accept them being together. The girl frowned in annoyance. The girl got angry, transforming into an angry cartoon form and punished the whole team to run 50 laps around the court, leaving everyone stunned. Night fell, city lights shone brightly under the starry sky and crescent moon. In the quiet room, the male lead focused on doing his homework, while the woman stood silently behind the door, watching with a serious expression. While concentrating on studying, Chu Ching suddenly turned his head upon hearing a familiar call. In front of him was his mother with a serious look. It was late at night, the moonlight shining through the window. Chu Ching's mother approached the study desk, her face tense as if preparing to say something important. In a firm tone, Chu Ching's mother directly asked her son if there was any girl he liked. Her straightforwardness suddenly made the atmosphere tense. Chu Ching gently pinched Huahua's cheek and smiled encouragingly, telling her she didn't need to force herself, just be herself. Feeling more confident, Huahua happily washed the dishes in the kitchen while Chu Ching quietly walked away looking tired. Chu Ching stretched and complained about his back pain, silently blaming Huahua for being too enthusiastic today. The phone rang, catching Chu Ching's attention, and he turned his head to look. Opening the phone, Chu Ching received a brief message. "The issue has been resolved," along with the avatar of a silver-haired girl. Chu Ching bluntly asked his mother why people couldn't treat each other kindly, expressing dissatisfaction with family conflicts. Chu Ching's mother changed the subject, asking if he wanted to marry Yi Chengxi to avoid an arranged marriage. She also asked about his knowledge of the National University. Chu Ching confirmed that he knew well about the National University, not only the top in the country, but also a powerful force with wide influence. His mother strongly motivated her son, affirming that if he wanted to escape the arranged marriage and control his destiny, he had to get admitted to the National University. Chu Qing hesitated but finally agreed to try. At night, Chu Qing meditated in his room, radiating a strong aura. He pondered the National University, a place full of secrets about cultivation, like the immortal world he once knew. While cultivating, Chu Qing gently extended his hand, summoning a golden sword glowing brightly in midair. The energy from the sword spread brilliantly throughout the room. Chu Qing sat meditating by the window, recalling his 300-year cultivation journey from foundation establishment to great perfection before being brought to this strange world. He focused intently on the sword, sensing a strange transformation. Although invisible to the naked eye, he recognized that its power had changed. Chu Qing worried when he saw unusual rust spots appearing on the sword. He suspected his cultivation path had gone astray, and if the foundation of his cultivation collapsed, his life would be in danger. Knowing the imminent danger, Chu Qing decided he must quickly find the fateful bowl and hide it before someone else could act. As Chu Qing concentrated on cultivating, the phone suddenly rang, shattering the silence. He picked up the phone, surprised and cautious, saying, "Hello." On the other end, an angry voice shouted. A silver-haired man yelled that he had reminded him many times about tonight's auction, which was about to start but he still hadn't arrived. Chu Qing was stunned, scratching his head and wondering, how did it come to this? In class, Chu Qing lay exhausted on the desk, quietly looking at his phone, seemingly indifferent to the surrounding noise. On the phone screen were 3 identical messages reminding him about tonight's auction with a note. "I have something to tell you," Chu Qing replied with just one word, "Okay." After reading the messages, he casually put the phone down on the desk, showing little concern. Within seconds, he had fallen asleep deeply with a tired expression, seemingly forgetting the promise he had made. Waking up in the middle of the night, Chu Qing looked confused at the phone in his hand, suddenly realizing he had missed the important auction. Chu Qing appeared in the grand hall calmly, attracting the attention of many around him. He thought to himself that this time he came to the auction to find suitable divine metal materials to craft a sword sheath. The Shizhen auction building shone brightly at night, gathering elites and powerful people. Upon entering the hall, Chu Qing's gaze stopped when he spotted an acquaintance chatting with a lady in a striking red dress. The silver-haired man was elegant, wearing a luxurious suit, standing out in the crowd with a confident and charming demeanor. However, before he could approach, he was lightly scolded by the woman beside him for something, causing him to shyly lower his head and smile awkwardly. Chu Qing realized the true purpose of the Zhai family. They were trying to elevate the reputation of that young man by associating him with famous women. As Chu Qing entered the hall, a group of people nearby began whispering, mocking his appearance and status, looking down on him as unworthy of attending the auction. A girl suddenly appeared, catching Chu Qing's attention amid the bright lights and tense atmosphere. The woman in the arrogant blue dress mocked Chu Qing, loudly ridiculing his status and declaring that this place was not for poor people like him, a public humiliation that darkened Chu Qing's gaze. Chu Qing tried to restrain everyone, hoping they would behave more peacefully instead of fighting. His mother asked directly if he wanted to marry Yi Chengxi to escape the arranged marriage. Chu Qing affirmed that he knew well about the National University, a place not only top-ranked, but also a powerful force in the country. His mother became determined, saying that if he wanted to control his fate and break free from family constraints, he had to pass the entrance exam for that school. Chu Qing agreed to try his best. That night, Chu Qing meditated under the blue light, realizing that the National University held many secrets about this world, a world with cultivation realms similar to the immortal world. The nobleman panicked and shouted for security after witnessing Chu Qing's firm action, his face drained of blood. Zhai Yu stepped forward calmly, affirming that Chu Qing was a good brother, and anyone who insulted him insulted Zhai Yu himself. Zhai Yu solemnly declared the permanent expulsion of the two, who had just insulted Chu Qing from the Shizhen auction hall. The couple trembled and knelt down begging for mercy, but it was too late. They had already destroyed their reputation in front of Zhai Yu. Zhai Yu smiled gently at Chu Qing, expressing regret that he was treated poorly, but quickly shifted the topic to the main matter he wanted to discuss. Jia Yu approached Chu Qing and asked directly an important question. Is your mother from the Chu family in the imperial capital? Chu Qing nodded in confirmation. Jia Yu revealed that Chu Qing's aunt, Chu Qing, had lost a leg and a kidney. People from the Chu family tried to buy this information, but he immediately stopped them. Jia Yu continued, saying that all those involved, from Chu Qing to his relatives, had been monitored and investigated. Chu Qing asked if they had identified who caused the incident yet, but Jia Yu said there were no leads so far. The investigation was ongoing. As Chu Qing recalled his past worries, suddenly two beautiful girls appeared calling his name, Chu Qing, drawing everyone's attention to them. Chu Qing and the silver-haired man smiled and greeted Aunt Yi and Chengxi. They had just appeared with a prominent demeanor, making the atmosphere somewhat more formal. Aunt Yi seriously reminded Chu Qing to focus on preparing for the university entrance exam instead of going out to play, emphasizing that fun could wait. Chu Qing realized Aunt Yi was worried about his relationship with Jia Yu. However, he confidently replied that he was fine and there was no need to worry. Chengxi quickly pushed her mother aside, saying she had something to say privately to Chu Qing. The intimacy in her action made everyone understand the meaning. Chengxi happily hugged Chu Qing tightly, shouting emotionally, "Finally, I've found you," which made him somewhat embarrassed but unable to hide his smile. The private conversation between Chu Qing and the girl was interrupted when the silver-haired manager came to remind them that the auction was about to start, subtly urging them to return to their roles. The girl held Chu Qing's hand, gently reassuring him not to mind what Aunt Yi said earlier, as if trying to dispel all pressure. The silver-haired manager laughed, saying Aunt Yi only cared because she saw Chu Qing as an ideal son-in-law, making him both embarrassed and shy. On the way into the private room, Chu Qing asked about a special type of metal, and the manager said he would provide information later, suggesting they go in first. The VIP room door opened. Warm lights illuminated the luxurious room, signaling that the auction was about to officially begin. Chengxi sat comfortably on the sofa, asking about the spirit stones that Chu Qing had mentioned. He confirmed that 5 stones appeared in this auction session. While Chengxi was still surprised, Chu Qing handed her a bottle of drink that amazed her because of his choice. Chengxi was angry because she was given milk tea while Chu Qing held alcohol. She questioned him about this unfairness. Chu Qing suddenly remembered that in this world, women, especially Chengxi, liked alcoholic drinks very much, which made him stunned. Chengxi smiled gently, implying she was willing to give up alcohol if he didn't like it. Chu Qing awkwardly replied that he really didn't mind about that. Chengxi took Chu Qing's hand proactively, making the atmosphere full of implication. She pressed close to him, creating a charmingly intimate moment. Chengxi smiled mischievously, inviting Chu Qing to drink freely, just the two of them. Chu Qing hesitated inside, swayed by Chengxi's fragrance, clearly feeling her initiative. Chengxi leaned close and whispered into Chu Qing's ear, boasting that she had bought the maid outfit and bunny ears as he had requested. Chu Qing's face flushed red with surprise and embarrassment. In Chu Qing's mind appeared the image of Chengxi in the maid outfit and bunny ears, his expression dazed from being overwhelmed. Suddenly, Chengxi lunged and pinned Chu Qing down on the chair, leaving him startled and unable to react. Chengxi pressed close, the two of them looking at each other in the hazy atmosphere, Chu Qing's heart pounding as if it would leap out. Chu Qing looked up, trying to stay calm, but inwardly admitted Chengxi was too seductive, her figure making him strongly shaken. Unexpectedly, Chu Qing took the initiative to embrace Chengxi and kissed her passionately, heating up the atmosphere. At that moment, the butler suddenly opened the door and entered the room, intending to report something to Chu Qing. The shocking scene left the butler frozen in place, while Chu Qing and Chengxi were stiff and speechless. The butler hurriedly closed the door, apologized for the disturbance, and quickly left, leaving the two in an awkward situation. Chengxi was not embarrassed at all. She gently leaned close to Chu Qing, smiling seductively. "Forget it, let's continue what we were doing earlier." Chu Qing suddenly stopped, blushing and stammering an excuse that the auction was about to start and promised deep then high next time. Deep then High crossed her arms, smiling teasingly, asking if he was feeling embarrassed. Chu Qing awkwardly argued back, blaming Jia Yu for secretly watching, which prevented him from going further, making then High laugh delightedly. Just outside the door, Jia Yu peeked in and called someone else in, revealing that he had been spying from the start. Jia Yu turned back, looking apologetic but unable to hide a mischievous smile as he shared the information, apologizing for interrupting the two's private activity. After the interrupted intimate moment, Chu Qing and Chengxi sat back on the sofa, both appearing thoughtful but still maintaining close proximity. Chu Qing reviewed the list of items for the upcoming auction and was disappointed not to find any sacred documents that could unseal his sword. Jia Yu suddenly appeared, pointed at the screen, and said there was a special meteorite fragment on the list. Jia Yu explained that although the meteorite fragment looked small, it was extremely dense and could be crafted into a magical weapon if used properly. He also mentioned that the stone was still warm when he studied it and could become an energy-accumulating object without pollution, a valuable potential power source. Iller laughed loudly upon hearing the assistant's exaggerated explanation. The silver-haired guy beside her looked annoyed, feeling disrespected. The assistant was displeased, thinking Chu Qing's demands were too high, so he decided not to persuade further, snatching back the display board with a frustrated attitude. Chu Qing was excluded from the exchange. The assistant immediately turned to Iller, respectfully handing over the board and suggesting she choose an item if anything caught her interest. Iller carefully observed the screen, her eyes lighting up as she discovered something special among the long list. On the screen was an image of an ancient wine jar named Qiangye. According to the description, it was wine buried in an ancient tomb that could greatly enhance strength if consumed. Chu Qing asked if the girl wanted to own that item. She shook her head, saying it would be fought over by many people, and even if she won it, she wouldn't have the strength to protect it. A flash of light appeared in Chu Qing's eyes, as he suddenly discovered something after her refusal. Chu Qing stared intently at the ancient jar described, his gaze becoming serious as he recognized the familiar patterns on its surface. Chu Qing was stunned, realizing the jar contained Daowen, the very material he had long sought to unseal his sword. Jia Yu crossed his arms, looking smug as he declared he would lead them to see the real item if begged. Behind him, Chu Qing and Chengxi looked at him with puzzled eyes, unable to hide their suspicion. Chu Qing stood up and calmly declined the offer. He said that if the bronze vase was truly a spiritual material, he would seriously consider it, showing his clear-headedness in the face of Jia Yu's showmanship. In response to the offer to see the real item, the silver-haired man tried to act arrogant, throwing out provocations full of pride. Chu Qing only replied with a cold look and a meaningful silence. Chu Qing stood up and refused the invitation. However, he also admitted that if the ancient vase was truly a spiritual material, he would seriously consider seizing it. Suddenly, a shout of 100 million startled all three. Chu Qing froze, the familiar name Tang Ziyan flashing through his mind. He immediately looked down at the main hall where the auction was reaching its climax. A purple-haired girl in the audience was stunned to learn that Tang Ziyan had boldly spent 100 million in the auction, her eyes showing clear doubt. The host announced that the auctioned item was the alchemy formula of the Tang family, affirming its special value in the cultivation world. Zhu Buqin wondered if the Li family was behind this auction, but Chu Qing analyzed that it might be a result of internal strife within the Tang family itself. After some thought, Chu Qing decided to directly investigate the truth. He left with a serious face and determined eyes. Suddenly, Chu Qing let out a light burp just after stepping away. This unexpected action made the atmosphere somewhat awkward mixed with humor. Chu Qing suddenly turned back when he saw Chengxi secretly drinking a can of soda, his eyes full of suspicion as he silently observed. Chengxi scratched her head and forced a smile, trying to ease the mood. She said if he didn't like it, she would avoid drinking that from now on. Chu Qing looked at her seriously and sharply questioned Chengxi's lifestyle, criticizing her for only caring about men and nothing else. Chengxi placed her hand on Chu Qing's forehead as if checking his temperature, angry at his unusual attitude. She reminded him about previously asking for his help to discipline a woman. Chu Qing coldly replied that those whom Chengxi had used were all dead, killed by her own aunt, Aunt Yi. Yi Chengxi was shocked to hear that her mother had killed her women. She screamed in confusion, "No way, why would Mom do that?" The male lead frowned and explained that Yi Chengxi's mother never gave her power because she felt she wasn't ready. Aunt Yi nearly lost her life when discovering the danger and thus revealed the family secret. The male lead looked straight at Yi Chengxi, criticizing her for not understanding the family matters and not caring about the disaster happening to the Tang family. He hypothesized, if suddenly Yi Chengxi became the head of the family and had to handle this crisis, what would she do? Yi Chengxi reacted sulkily, saying he was like her mother. She complained, "If you keep talking like a 70-year-old man instead of a 17-year-old boy, you won't be cute anymore." Chu Qing angrily shouted, his fury ignited by D-I letter 1EC7P-TH letter 1EA7N Hai's carelessness. She was startled and instinctively stepped back in fear. After his anger subsided, Chu Qing became serious. He frankly said the reason he cared was not because he liked to interfere, but because if someone close died, he would be the one to handle the funeral and seek revenge. D-I letter 1EC7P-TH letter 1EA7N Hai sighed softly, complaining that family matters were really troublesome, her eyes avoiding responsibility. She gently touched Chu Qing's chest and whispered seductively, asking if he would not leave her. Chu Qing awkwardly responded that he would. Ignore her, but TH letter 1EA7N Hai smiled brightly, confident he could not leave her. Chu Qing sighed and leaned back in his chair with a helpless expression after the tense conversation. In his mind, the image of D-I letter 1EC7P-TH letter 1EA7N Hai appeared alluring along with her sweet promise that confused him. "Next time we meet, I will eat you." At this moment, the silver-haired man stepped forward to announce good news. Chu Qing's 5 items brought in 5 million. After commission, there was 3 million left, and asked if he wanted cash or to keep it as credit. Chu Qing chose to keep it as credit, then immediately asked about the person who bought Qiangjiang, the mysterious item previously auctioned. The silver-haired man replied that he knew the buyer's identity, but due to auction rules, he could not disclose it. Chu Qing affirmed that what he cared about was not Qiangjiang but the bronze vase that contained it. This surprised the other party, who repeated, "That bronze vase." The silver-haired man was shocked, his eyes flashing. He began to doubt whether he had misjudged the true value of the vase. A feeling of unease surged within him. Although he thought he had seen through Chu Qing, now he saw him as a mysterious box that could not be opened. Chu Qing smiled faintly, his deep eyes hiding confidence and calculation. What he knew was only the tip of the iceberg. The silver-haired man was shocked when suppressed by Chu Qing's power, sweating profusely because he did not expect to be seen through. Chu Qing sat confidently, sneering and bluntly criticizing the opponent's bronze technique, ability as useless against him, revealing that the bronze vase was a treasure but not meant for him. The silver-haired man sighed, admitted his fault, promised not to use the bronze technique to pry into Chu Qing anymore, and acknowledged that he had been too hasty. Chu Qing stood up to leave, but the other immediately held him back, suggesting to take him to a special place. Chu Qing refused immediately, complaining that he still had homework and school tomorrow, implicitly reminding that he was still a high school student. Chu Qing coldly raised his middle finger in response to the teasing, while the silver-haired man hurriedly changed his tone, telling him to obediently go home and do homework like a good student. Chu Qing's car sped through the dark night under the dim moonlight, leaving behind a quiet forest and a star-filled sky. Looking at the clock showing 23:07, Chu Qing silently hoped his father had not noticed his absence, while feeling satisfied for having achieved his goal at the auction. He told himself that if he could get the bronze vase, the sword sheath problem would be solved. The next step was to establish a strong alliance like the Ye family or the auction association. In his subconscious, the image of his former self appeared, a lone swordsman unburdened by worldly matters. But now, Chu Qing was no longer the same person. Chu Qing recalled his family, a place full of warmth and emotional bonds despite the scolding. The image of his companion appeared in his mind, always sarcastic but sincere and caring. the important girls in Chu Qing's life, each with their own personality and a special place in his heart. For those people, Chu Qing was determined to fight and build an empire of his own in this world. The car sped through the night, ignoring the construction sign ahead, as if signaling an impending event. Chu Qing drove to the road blocked by a construction sign, his headlights shining directly on the barricade ahead. Seeing no other cars around, Chu Qing wondered about the unusual construction site that he hadn't noticed on the way. Suddenly, a dazzling light appeared from behind, startling Chu Qing and putting him on full alert. A giant lightning bolt tore through the night sky, accompanied by a strong killing intent that made Chu Qing immediately swerve the car onto the roadside. The car stopped behind thick bushes. The surrounding air was eerily silent, only the rustling grass signaling that something was about to happen. Chu Qing hid in the bushes, silently observing every movement ahead with vigilant eyes. In the distance was a wooden building in the dark. A group of people gathered there, including a mysterious cloaked figure who had just entered. Among the solemn ranks, an imposing old lady led them. She wore a black cloak embroidered with a golden dragon, leaning on a golden cane, exuding an overwhelming aura. A woman in a purple cloak appeared, radiating intense purple energy that seemed to shake the entire space. Chu Qing shuddered. He clearly sensed the woman in purple was stronger than the other 6 combined. A real threat had just appeared. The old lady leading the guards questioned the woman in purple, suspecting she intended to kill someone to seize an item legally purchased at the auction. The woman in purple retorted sarcastically, accusing the martial artists of shamelessly using their power to seize national treasures. A group of cloaked people stood before a high-rise building amid a storm, discussing the identity of the sword dance envoy they had heard about from deep then high. The male lead in the bushes thought, because ancient martial groups were too powerful and police could not control them, the government established the Sword Dance Organization to monitor them. The old lady angrily shouted that this matter was not serious enough to require the purple-cloaked person's intervention, and demanded she present an official judgment order. The young boy hidden in the bushes silently observed the confrontation and quietly speculated about the judgment order, which was probably the supreme authority of the Sword Affairs Department. The woman in the purple cloak raised her head, confidently affirming that she had the authority. Immediately, she launched a powerful attack, her body enveloped in a purple aura full of killing intent. The old lady was horrified, her eyes revealing fear as she realized her opponent was overwhelmingly superior. The brutal strike hit down, cracking the ground and splattering blood everywhere, signaling that the merciless battle had officially begun. The fierce blow from the woman in purple sent the entire group of opponents, including the leading old lady, flying and falling in pain. The wails echoed through the night, marking the absolute dominance of the attacker. Under the cold moonlight, the woman in the purple cloak stood among the blood-soaked corpses. The 6 who had just challenged her now lay motionless at her feet. From within the bushes, the young man observed with a serious expression. He silently exclaimed, "She is too ruthless, killing the entire group in the blink of an eye." The woman turned back to the car and gently opened the trunk as if nothing had just happened. Inside the trunk, she took out an ancient bronze artifact, her cold eyes scanning every pattern on it. The young man was startled when he saw the item in her hand. "That vase! So they really were at the auction?" he whispered as all doubts began to clear. The woman in the purple cloak suddenly became alert, turned around and shouted loudly, "Who's there? Come out now." From the bushes, the young man stepped out with a carefree expression. "If I said I just happened to pass by, would you believe me?" The girl smiled lightly, glancing at the young man as she put something into the trunk. "I believe you." Without hesitation, the girl immediately launched herself forward at a terrifying speed. In an instant, she threw a punch enveloped in deep purple energy, striking her opponent with fierce killing intent. The woman in the purple cloak radiated a chilling, murderous aura, her eyes blazing. She growled each word, "But I have to kill you." As she rushed forward, the teenager's hand moved like lightning to block the direct blow. A fierce clash erupted, black and golden energies swirling around them, sparks flying. The teenager drew a blazing golden sword, his cold eyes full of confidence. "Hot-tempered women aren't good," he said. The woman in the purple cloak widened her eyes in horror as the sword's light pierced straight toward her chest. The teenager struck the sword down onto the ground, causing a powerful shock that tore through the earth, forcing her to leap high to evade. The woman in the purple cloak leapt into the air, her eyes sharp and cold, preparing to deliver the finishing blow. A thunderous kick aimed straight at the young man's head created a shockwave that shook the air. The boy did not dodge but used his hand to block the attack, his calm gaze surprising his opponent. A lightning-fast counterpunch sent blood flying as the woman's body was knocked far away. She crashed hard to the ground, creating a violent impact and leaving a long blood trail, ending the young man's swift counterattack. The young man raised his fiery sword high and calmly declared that if she wanted to silence him, she would have to do more than that. The blood-covered female assassin rose from the rubble, her eyes furious as she growled, "Do you want to die?" She removed her cloak, tossed her hair, and summoned a powerful wave of murderous aura along with a dark sword. In midair, a giant gun soaked in murderous aura appeared before the young man, causing him to momentarily freeze. Under the heavy pressure of the murderous aura, he gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "This killing intent is truly terrifying." The purple-haired woman raised her gun and smiled coldly. She aimed at the young man and coldly declared, "It's time to die handsome." A bullet full of killing intent was fired, carrying a dark energy that rushed straight toward the motionless young man. In an instant, the bullet came close to his face. The young man remained calm, his determined eyes facing death. He activated a strange technique, summoning countless swords of light. The sky and earth seemed torn apart as thunder roared. A brilliant explosion erupted, engulfing the entire scene in a dazzling golden glow. Overwhelming power covered all directions. The purple-haired woman smiled coldly as she witnessed the fierce explosion she had just caused. The blazing pillar of fire shattered the night as if everything had ended according to her will. After completing the attack, she calmly walked toward her BMW, exuding arrogance and not a trace of fear. Inside the car cabin, she carefully retrieved the ancient artifact, the mysterious vase, with a passionate gaze, as if fighting was merely a means to achieve this goal. Suddenly, a dazzling flash of light appeared from behind, accompanied by splattering blood. An unexpected attack was rushing straight toward her. The girl froze, her eyes filled with panic. She did not expect that the one she thought was defeated still had enough strength to counterattack so suddenly. The purple-haired girl turned around in horror, blood gushing violently from her back as the sword pierced straight through her body. The young boy stepped out from the smoke, his body covered in wounds, coldly looking at her. "You, still not dead." The girl collapsed to the ground, blood pooling beneath her. The boy stood before the body with a blazing sword in hand. He knelt down and plunged the sword into the ground. "This bullet is too evil. I must seal it immediately." The young man sat cross-legged in meditation, golden light surrounding his body, preparing to cultivate and seal. Energy from his body flared fiercely, his whole body glowing brightly as energy flowed along his meridians. Suddenly, a counterattack from the sealed bullet exploded at his shoulder, blood gushing out. The flesh-tearing pain made him scream in despair, his face contorted by the sudden agony that struck. The young man sat in the moonlit night, the wound on his shoulder still bleeding. Although he had tried to seal the killing intent within the bullet, he realized it kept screaming to take his life. He picked up the gun, carefully examining every detail. With its completely ordinary appearance, it made him even more suspicious. Suddenly, the bullet that had been fired earlier glowed, emitting a fierce purple aura. He was stunned, his eyes fixed on it. He held the bullet and realized that the light and killing intent did not come from the gun, but from the bullet itself, a place containing sealed evil energy. He clenched the bullet tightly, his gaze deep in thought. This was not an ordinary bullet, but a weapon specially made to kill people like him, martial artists. In a high-rise apartment late at night, a pink-haired girl was focused on playing a game when suddenly she was startled by a loud noise outside the door. She immediately rushed out to check and was horrified to see Chu Qing lying unconscious by the door, covered in blood. Chu Qing was unconscious, his face pale and breathing weak. The girl panicked, supporting him while crying and asking if she should take him to the hospital. Chu Qing tried to sit up, smiling weakly, instructing her to cut away the necrotic flesh from the wound before it was too late. Chu Qing was laid on the bed, his body soaked in blood. The pink-haired girl stood beside him, holding a small knife, worriedly saying, "The situation is really bad." Trembling and scared, the girl could not hold the knife. She burst into tears. "I can't do it, I can't hurt you." A thought flashed in her mind, Sister Deep, the only person she trusted who could act without hesitation. Immediately, she brought Sister Deep to the room. The two looked at Chu Qing, unconscious with a serious wound. Sister Deep silently observed, her cold eyes calculating how to handle the situation. Without hesitation, Sister Deep reached for the knife and decisively ordered, "Give it to me." Then, without any hesitation, Sister Deep plunged the knife into Chu Qing's wound to remove the necrotic flesh, blood spurting violently. Chu Qing screamed in pain as the wound was cut deep, his whole body trembling from the bone-deep agony. His scream terrified the pink-haired girl. She panicked and hid behind the wall while the woman in black coldly ordered, "Endure it. You caused so much trouble and can't even bear this little pain." Everything ended with a long, miserable scream. The blood-stained knife lay on the tray alongside bandages and disinfectant, showing the cruel surgery that had just taken place. Chu Qing lay on the bed, breathing heavily, his body bandaged everywhere after the brutal operation due to severe injuries. Hua anxiously asked if Chu Qing was feeling better. Yi Chengxi turned around and reassured her that he would be fine. Chu Qing awkwardly thought to himself that Hua's fear causing her to call Yi Chengxi for help made him feel extremely embarrassed. Yi Chengxi coldly ordered Hua to get water for Chu Qing, while she herself approached the bed. The door closed behind Hua, leaving Yi Chengxi alone with Chu Qing in a quiet, tense atmosphere full of hidden meanings. Yi Chengxi became angry when she found out Chu Qing had gone to Hua without informing her. A violent aura flared up, her gaze like a blade pressed against Chu Qing's face, making him break out in a cold sweat. Chu Qing retorted, pointing out the unfairness that Yi Chengxi was allowed to have many men around her, but he could not have many women. Yi Chengxi questioned him back, asking directly if she dated another man whether Chu Qing would care. Chu Qing responded indifferently that society is inherently unfair. If Yi Chengxi couldn't accept it, she could leave any time. Yi Chengxi exploded in anger. She admitted Chu Qing was right, but that didn't mean she had to accept it. She shouted, accusing Chu Qing of having double standards. Under fierce counterattack, Chu Qing was speechless watching Yi Chengxi's furious aura erupt. He could only remain silent in guilt. Yi Chengxi pulled Chu Qing's ear, angrily questioning why he chose to go to Hua's house instead of coming to find her. Chu Qing could only cry out in pain. Chu Qing appeared cautious and confused when hearing the unexpected question, silently thinking, "Why is she asking that?" Yi Chengxi seriously stepped in and directly questioned, "So what exactly happened last night?" Without evading, Chu Qing calmly admitted, "I killed a Jianwu envoy." A crashing sound was heard. A cup of water that Hua was holding fell to the floor, spilling everywhere. Both Yi Chengxi and Hua were extremely shocked, exclaiming in unison, "What?" Chu Qing woke up and explained that he only acted in self-defense when attacked first. Yi Chengxi raised a strange, glowing bullet, attracting everyone's attention. Yi Chengxi confirmed it was a Vong Xian, a deadly bullet that he was very lucky to survive. Little Hua asked in amazement about the bullet's name. Yi Chengxi explained that Vong Xian is a martial artist's nightmare, managed by the military surveillance department, very rare and difficult to manufacture. Yi Chengxi inquired about the rank of the envoy Chu Qing met last night. He replied he was not sure, only knowing the person wore a purple cloak. Yi Chengxi explained the Jianwu envoy rank system, which includes 5 colors: red, yellow, green, blue, and purple. Red is the highest rank, purple the lowest. Usually only those wearing green cloaks are qualified to use Wangchuan. She continued to question why Chu Qing met a purple-cloaked envoy who also carried Wangchuan, a very rare occurrence. Chu Qing did not answer directly, but instead asked back about the levels of martial artists, showing a clear lack of knowledge that surprised Yi Chengxi. Yi Chengxi was stunned to hear such a simple question from a soldier. Chu Qing remained silent, embarrassed. Chu Qing recalled his past. When he was young, he met a beggar selling martial arts books. Feeling pity, he bought the books and learned from them. Yi Chengxi lost patience and interrupted with annoyance because the story was too rambling. The black-haired girl explained that martial arts are divided into 5 realms from low to high. Entry realm, Ru Jiang, martial realm, Wu Jiang, natural realm, Zhai Jiang, transformation realm, Hua Jiang, and saint realm, Sheng Jiang. Each realm consists of 9 sublevels. The male lead wondered about the girl's current level. The girl calmly replied that she was at the 9th level of entry realm and about to break through. The alarm bell rang from the phone, showing 7:30 a.m. The male lead suddenly jumped up in panic, remembering he didn't go home yesterday, so he must go to school today. However, as soon as he got up, he was immediately pinned down on the bed by the girl with one hand. Both girls stopped him when Chu Qing tried to leave the bed, insisting he needed to rest for a few days after the serious injury. Chu Qing removed the bandage on his neck, preparing to prove something to the surprise of both girls. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing healed scars, calmly saying he was fine. The black-haired girl was stunned and rushed forward to ask urgently, "Are you really human, being hit by Wang Chuan and not dying and recovering so quickly?" She continued to doubt, asking how he stopped the evil energy of Wang Chuan from spreading through the wound. Chu Qing just smiled and replied briefly, "Want to learn?" The girl in black widened her eyes in amazement when hearing the male lead say he would teach her how to control the Vong Ziyern bullet, something every martial artist desires. The male lead calmly withdrew his hand, telling the girl not to worry because he needed to go to school immediately or he'd be late. Surprised, the girl hurriedly called after him as she saw him leave too quickly. The pink-haired girl stood trembling inside the living room, her face worried as if afraid of something that just happened. She ran after calling, "Sister D.I. letter 1EC7P," but the sister silently walked away without saying anything. Sister D.I. letter 1EC7P's face showed a thoughtful expression, her eyes looking down with an emotion hard to read. The door closed, leaving the pink-haired girl standing dazed in the empty room. The little girl fearfully wondered, "Is she angry with me?" when she received no response from Sister D.I. letter 1EC7P.